Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Aurora. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. It is September 20th, 2023. If you're wondering about my movements like this back and forth, it's because I'm walking on a treadmill. It's what I do while I do my classes and a lot of Zoom and telephone work at this point. September 20th. We are in the midst right now of surfing a time tsunami. Actually, the energetic weather report is pretty good. Pretty smooth sailing in clear weather. Of course, always, be cognizant of sudden changes. But really, we did a lot of the foundation work, we did a lot of the foundation work last week in terms of you set your intentions and kind of begin to set a course for which direction, which reality structure you're going to be aligning with. So you will be rolling and diving through portals over the next couple of days. So please, surf the probability waves in the best, most life-affirming ways that you possibly can. I'm very excited, as I always am, actually. I love Wednesdays. It's one of my favorite things to do is to teach this class. So I'm very excited to be here today. Hi, welcome, Joyce. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who can be here live. And I'm also so grateful to everybody who catches the archive for taking the time to do this. Today is Level 1, Lesson 8, and it's called Non-Religious Christ Consciousness. So, of course, I recorded this 10 years ago, and so much has changed in our world in terms of the inundation of graphene oxide or carbon nanotubules into the human biological world and how that affects our pineal gland. So I'm always going to give you the updated, most empowering amount of information and sharing that I can relevant to what's going on. Otherwise, I could just be like, here's everything from 10 years ago. I'm going to go walk my dog, So no, this is very important because everything must be recontextualized in, response to what we are presently experiencing in the biological realm with this invasion or infestation or profusion, non-consensual, of technology into the biology world and how that affects what we're going on. So I will not hold back any information, and also in order to keep things on YouTube in the way that I am, sometimes I am selective in the wording, the choice of words that I use, but I know you're getting me where I'm coming from. And of course, patrons watch my videos all the time, and especially the ones that I do ongoing health series that I do with a local wonderful holistic health practitioner on Friday mornings that, no holds are barred, or there's no self-censorship in terms of sharing all information and using all vocabulary words. But I might here reference the unmentionables. So hold on. Sorry. And Jiki's doing actually very well because there's a garbage truck outside. Usually she'd be barking a lot. Hold on. Okay, so all lightheartedness aside, and also just pulling up my notes, and I squinted and scrolled before class, so I have everything ready. Okay, so the first thing is, those health series that I do with a local health practitioner, we really focus a lot on melatonin, and melatonin is one of the topics that we're talking about today. So this is non-religious Christ consciousness, and the first thing that I'm going to do is show you some of my my drawings. Here, let's go to this one over here. No, let's go to this one over here. This is a screenshot from my actual, put this one in, good, annotation, good. This is a screenshot from the actual lesson, and I encourage you to watch that lesson from 10 years ago. Everything that I shared there is still relevant, and also you need the update for what is most relevant to what's going on right now. So first of all, what's the distinction between Christ consciousness or your third, aka your third eye? Wait, I'm going to hop out of here and just mute everyone. Not because I don't love you, but it helps with the audio recording. Good. What is the distinction between, let me start again. There is a gland inside of your brain called the pineal gland. What is the distinction that we can make between that physical structure and the energy field that it emits? Because one is a physical, anatomical, cellular, material aspect of yourself, and one is an intangible aspect of self that is not something that would be visible upon the dissection of your body if you were dead, like a post-mortem dissection. So one of the challenges is, since I recorded that lesson 10 years ago, Earth's surface, human science has definitely leveled up more, but not enough to be able to perceive non-optical light. Because if it could perceive non-optical light, it would say, oh, look at that. Your pineal gland is not just a gland that emits 3 distinct hormones into your body, or hormone-like endocrine molecules into your body. It also emits an energy field. So let's start off, I just don't even want to have to talk about regular science. Let's just do this class. There's a distinction between the physical structures of your somatic cellular body that is part of the consensual realm that objective materialist science recognizes and works within, and your energy field, or your energy body. And your energy body is not just this amorphous blob, it is highly structured. So there's a force field that is emitted by your pineal gland. What is your pineal gland? It is a tiny structure that is deep within your brain. Your brain, it's called the midbrain, because your brain has these 2 hemispheres, and when I go like this, I'm actually going to go like this, because in your brain you have this area kind of where my thumb is, that is the language center, and it's temporal lobe just right here up above your ear. So if I go like this, that represents the midbrain, and this area here, if I go like this, that is more accurately structured anatomically, and this area here where my hands are coming together, that's the center of your brain, or the midbrain, in between these 2 halves. And there are several endocrine and hormonal structures that are there, that are part of the feeling state of your body. So your brain, the surface of your brain, is largely involved in cognitive events and the thought events that humans experience as like intellect, and the hormonal secretion glands and other glands that are in the midbrain are more about feeling states and viewpoints of reality, and they're very, very powerful in terms of the overarching metabolism of your body. So your pineal gland is, how can I even say it? One good description is that it is like the conductor or the orchestrator, orchestrating all of these different systems that are happening in your body. From my viewpoint, the best way to describe it is to say that your pineal gland is like your heart, analogous to your heart. Your heart is the center of the circulatory system of blood in your physical body, and your pineal gland is the center of the circulatory system of light within your body. So your body ingests light. You ingest light indirectly. For example, I just had a wonderful papaya, cacao, coconut milk smoothie before we started this class. Awesome, good food. And it is full of light. And in all of my teachings, when I'm helping you towards what facilitates ascension, the answer is eating light. Eating light directly from the sun, which I'm pointing at outside of my window, and also eating light indirectly through the ingestion of physical substances that contain not only glucose, but light, which is intelligence and data and information. Now, as a brief aside, I'm finally restarting my class, Path of Light. That is Saturday morning class that is all about really coming from more of a direction of teaching and sharing in a pristine world. Like here in this class today, I'm going to talk a lot about the poop crapola and the stuff that's not supposed to be there. But on Saturday mornings, we put all the poop crapola aside and we talk about, in a pristine world, what is light and what is it doing? So please do enroll. People who have already enrolled, you don't have to re-enroll. You can just reaffirm, and you can write me an email and say, yes, I want to be a part of it, but you don't have to pay tuition again. And people who are new, get ready, put on your like weightlifting gloves, because it's intellectual heavy lifting. And I love sharing about this stuff too. It's not information that is available anyplace else. It's a totally unique viewpoint in terms of what light is and what it's doing. But as I emphasize in that class all the time, light is information, and it is intelligence, and it is organized data. So light is more than merely the optical presence that the 5 senses realm defines as light. meaning if you are a sighted individual and there is light, you can perceive stuff. You're like, hey, I see there's a tree over there. Or you guys can see my face because light from the sun is coming in through my window and bouncing off of my face. Light is one of the primary ways, optical light, that we navigate our world. However, light is also information. And this is how you can comprehend when you're eating light. You're like, oh, if I'm eating light, like, how is light inside of a papaya? And the answer is light, through photosynthesis, transformed from an abstraction or an intangibility into something that is tangible in the glucose molecule. And now it's circulating through my bloodstream. And my body, specifically my mitochondria, are like, hooray, papaya, come inside of me. We got some electrons to transport here. And I talk all about this in my Path of Light class too. There are intermediaries that are used in terms of molecular structures in order to transmit light. But what you're doing is transmitting information. So when I tell you that your pineal gland is the center of the circulatory system of light within your body, I'm talking about emitting and transmitting information around your body. And when I tell you about that, maybe that will help you to perceive this more. Because so clearly when you go outside, like you can see it on my face, I've been walking around with my dog a lot on beautiful sunny days. When you go outside, your skin responds to the presence of light by melanin, by your skin, because I wanted to say your skin produces melanin, but it is more accurate to say that melanin is produced in your body and then is emitted through melanocytes in the deep inner layers of your epidermis in order to create the protective darker colors that prevent too much light from entering your body. Your skin, simply put, responds to light. Physical, optical, not physical, optical, perceptible by the five senses light. So your skin is an organ for receiving and ingesting light, and also, of course, the physical eyes, all right? However, other organs of your body also require light, like organs that would be considered, whatever, they're deep inside of your body. Like your intestines need light, your heart needs light, but they're not out here being exposed to the sun while I'm walking my dog. They're deep inside of your body being safe. And so how do those organs receive light? And the answer is they receive their light, their information, their directives. Light is also directives. When I talk about orchestrating, we're talking about making all of these very complex cellular metabolisms fit together harmoniously in order to do something that is called sustain life and keep going and keep on being alive. Because if you don't have all of the organs and cells working together, like, a big, giant, beautiful orchestra called your body, you are dead. That is not what you want. So the pineal gland is absolutely essential in making certain that the light, information, intelligence, data, the directives of life circulate through all of your cells, not just the cells that are exposed directly to sunlight, and give the life-giving information and behavioral guidance to all aspects of being. Most especially your mitochondria. Mitochondria are light-sensitive or light-responsive subcellular organelles. They have their own little subroutines that are like they have their own DNA, mitochondrial DNA, that is responsible for the blueprints of what they do or their areas of expertise, like the musical score of what those particular musicians will be playing, which is separate and different than nuclear DNA, which is at the center of all of your nuclei. So they're incredibly influential, mitochondria, in terms of the metabolism in your body and capacitation and basic energy production. And they perform this magical thing where they turn papayas into energy that you can actually use in terms of an abstraction. So they are working at the level of where matter becomes pure energy, almost at the quantum level. When you get to such a tiny level, so the mitochondria are working at the level of like protons and electrons to actually not generate energy, but filter what energy is available to the body and transform it into palatable and usable packages for the rest of the cells to be able to be effective. It's essential. Mitochondria are essential for staying alive, all right? And your pineal gland is intimately related to your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are also part of the physical evidences of the circulatory system of light. You also have a circulatory system of light that is not part of something that can be seen under a microscope or cells or anything like that, and that's this. This is also your circulatory system of light. Dun, dun, dun. These are, you're very familiar with at this point, these are your chakras. And your chakras are non-optical light, and they are not part of the world of five senses. You perceive your chakras with your inner eye. So your inner eye perceives non-optical light. And the circulatory system of light through your chakras is light that comes from this primary source of pure awareness and unity consciousness that flows through these various layers of your subtle body, becoming larger and larger wavelengths and moving into greater and greater levels of density and slowness until it is expanded or experienced as the physicality structure of the body. And then light doesn't stop there. Then, of course, it also goes from the general back to the specific and goes back up to the source that emanated it in terms of the abstraction of the energy of the information of what is it like to be alive, all right? So you get your directives about what you should be experiencing and thinking about and what is going on from the primary white light of unity consciousness. It flows through all of your different energy layers that are all of your chakras, which is your time body. It slows down and becomes denser and more stuck together until it becomes your physicality presence. And then your physicality presence gathers information. Like, this is what it's like to be alive from my viewpoint, and then refines that light, which is what it is to be alive from your viewpoint, information, back into an intangible, abstract form that beep, 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 you transmit back to the sun and the stars as part of your ongoing rapport that is known as being alive, all right? So let's talk about, you can tell, like, my languaging is so difficult here because the pineal gland has been studied by human science. There are some things that we can all agree in consensual reality. This is what it is and this is what it's doing. That is related to but separate and distinct from your third eye, which is an intangible aperture and appendage that is used to perceive time directly. And that is related to your attention. Remember, your tendril of attention that reaches out and attenuates and learns about and tastes the things that it touches upon. And also this as an aperture that draws in information. So you have your physical eyes that draw in information in the form of physical light. Then you have your inner eye, and your inner eye draws in information in an abstract sense that is the level of just pure knowing. And it is really your true mind. It is your mind before or beyond the implantation of verbal language. And it is how you can see the future or sense things that haven't happened yet. You can feel down a time tunnel. You can look down a time tunnel with your inner eye and feel and sense what's going to happen. So one example would be if you're going to make a decision, like, should I take that job or should I not take that job? Somebody just, called you up and said, hey, want to work here? Here's the offer. And you kind of sit and you look down that time tunnel. You're like, well, if I take that job, here's what my life will be like. And then if I don't, here's what my life will be like. And then here are all these other, a whole spectrum of reality structures that are cascades as a result of that choice and cognitive event of whether or not you go on that timeline. And that's what it's supposed to be like to be an alive individual with a healthy functional pineal gland and a healthy functional third eye, which is also your Christ consciousness. That you're supposed to be able to be guided and led by a steady stream of information that tells you the end result of your choices. So you can be an informed consumer and be like, wow, if I choose that, that's what's going to happen. Let's say if you take that job, then like you will be dead in a ditch. Like, don't take that job. You don't want that to happen. So that way you can really make choices, and this is how you stay alive. In a world where everybody has a functioning and healthy pineal gland, you never have to die. You never have to play a wrong note. You never have to hit the membrane of death. You are empowered to be able to continue on your flight through time, all through making the correct choices. So another big distinction is this level of information does not take away or supersede your personal willpower. You're still an individual with personal willpower, but information is being given to you to guide you. And that is what the relationship with Christ consciousness is. It's like saying, do you want to take that job? If you do, these will be the end results. If you choose this over here, this will be the end results. Now you choose. That is exactly the value system of me and everything that I exemplify. That I say, here's flying rainbow lasagna, or here's this technique, or here's this opportunity. You are now informed as a maturing galactic citizen. Now you make your choice about what you want to do. And that's also how real learning occurs. So this is not Saturday morning, and we are going to talk all about the poop crapola, because that's how it's supposed to be. Supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to make these informed choices. However, through antiquity, humans have been diminished in their functioning of their pineal gland. It's not a new thing. And also, most recently, within the past 3 years, pineal gland has been pooped all over. And we're going to talk all about it so that you can do something effective about it. So, what has diminished the pineal gland in ancient or very, very older times? Genetic modification. Basically, human genes were changed and squashed and flattened, and it made it very, very difficult to be able to connect effectively to this level of consciousness. And also, when I tell you about this level of consciousness that is up here, it's not the end of the journey. You also go to this level of consciousness up here. So your Christ consciousness, or your eye of time, is intimately related to your crown, which is your divine connection. And those two things actually work together in the circulatory system of light throughout your body, just the way that your heart and lungs work together to bring oxygen, life-giving oxygen, to sustain your whole entire body presence. Divinity is like the great librarian that oversees the information that comes to you through the use of your pineal gland, your third eye, your Christ consciousness. The information that I say is analogous to getting your library card. And when you first got your library card, if you ever had that experience when you were like in kindergarten or you went to school or whatever, they give you this library card and then they bring you to the library and it's like, and this is the library and it's full of books. And you can get any book that you want. And you're like a little kid and it just looks like it's so big and there's so much. And what is essential is that you read at your comprehension level. That if you're just a little kindergartner and you're just learning your ABCs, you cannot check out War and Peace. You have to be guided by the librarian to be like, don't, those are adult books. They have words that are too big for you, and also some subject matter that is inappropriate for your age. Stuff that you don't even know about or can't learn about yet because your body can't do it yet. You need to be over here in the kids section. And here's like the place where there's like beanbag chairs and stuffed animals and books with lots of pictures and few words. And that's where you start off. That is the job of the crown. So although this class in particular focuses on the pineal gland and non-religious Christ consciousness, I would not be a good teacher if I made that the only part of the teaching, because these two things work together. Christ consciousness, which is a larger, overarching meta being. Meta is the prefix that means overarching. It is a giant aliveness that is comprised of many, many individual facets. That is innate to who you are. That's who you are, baked into the form of your being. There's no way to not be it. However, ancient genetic modifications have taken humanity away from that knowing. And this is part of ancient amnesia, the woundedness of feeling abandoned, isolated, and separated from your knowing about yourself, and also your true family, your true cosmic stellar family. Because when I talk about the Christ network, Christ consciousness, and this overarching organism that is alive and that is sentient, it is not only something that lives on planet Earth, and it is not only something that lives in organisms that have an anthropomorphic face like the one that I have right now. It is a much, much larger definition of, basically you could say, pure consciousness. Christ is consciousness. So I know that this runs antithetical to a lot of the religious teachings of this world. I wear a cross, but that does not mean that I am affiliated with the dogma of the Christian church, especially as it's very fraught. It's a mixed bag. It's a fish with bones. There's some good stuff. I like the stuff about the miracles. I like the stuff about the wonderful, compassionate rock star of a teacher who was here 2,000 years ago and who demonstrated the greatness of human potential, of what it is when you are a human and you are connected in Christ to God, the things you can do. Profound healings, changing people just by your presence, change and uplift and healing people just by your presence. Fishes in the loaves, that's nourishment and sustenance. That's what the circulatory system of light really does, beyond papaya smoothies and even raising of the dead. And these are like, I love the miracle stories. I think I find them very inspirational. And there are some wonderful people who have also been similarly inspired, and who were so inspired and so devotional to that original teacher that they also have found that a reconnection beyond genetic blockages to the presence of Christ in their life. But like the Christian church and the Catholic church, very, very fraught. A lot of bad things were done in the name of Jesus, in the name of Jesus Christ. A lot of suppression, a lot of cultural imperialism, inquisitions, bad stuff. A lot of difficult stuff. And even some of the dogma that is about shame and the lack of self-love and shaming certain body parts or certain body processes, all of that, just throw it out the window. Again, I'm not here to diminish your religion, if that is your religion. And my lightheartedness, I hope, is not seen as sacrilegious. But I am doing a real sharing of you, because there's some good stuff that really can sustain people in their darkest times in the Christian religion, and also getting together in community can also really help to sustain you in dark times, especially right now. Like, it can be very powerful to get together with others that have a similar positive heart space, to be in adoration of because the great teacher that was here, that was basically an avatar. So I talk about that in my teaching from 10 years ago. An avatar of Christ. Avatar basically means a container for Christ consciousness. Avatar comes from the Sanskrit meaning one who has come across waters. And so an avatar of Christ is one who has come across waters, a container for that overarching cosmic level of consciousness. And the one that we know as Jesus, who is actually named Yeshua in more accurate, non-culturally distorted terms, is not the only avatar of Christ. And again, I don't mean to be harming anybody who has deeply held beliefs about their religion, but there have been many avatars of Christ who have been here, and they've been across various different cultures. So Lord Krishna is an avatar of Christ. Deganawida from the Iroquois tradition is an avatar of Christ, and those are just some of the ones that we know from being in holy scriptures or having an oral tradition built up around them, because the Iroquois people didn't have like a Bible or Torah scrolls or a Bhagavad Gita or something like that, books that are written. They had an oral tradition. But great teachers and embodiments of this Christ presence have been here throughout human history, throughout the time of difficulty. And then where we came from in ancient or concurrent Atlantis, we all were imbued with Christ. We all lived in the living presence of Christ and were what would be considered a Christed society, meaning everybody had a functional pineal gland. Everybody was able to see through time. Everybody was able to perform these miracles of not only healing and regeneration, but sustenance. because when I talk about some of these great individuals who have been so devotional to Christ, the presence of Christ, they've been able to transcend the need for food. So right now, I told you, I just ate a papaya smoothie. I am totally at peace with the fact that right now, I am like one of those cars that's a hybrid vehicle that sometimes glug glug drinks gas from the gas pump, but sometimes gets charged up with electricity, right? So my body gets energy directly from the sun. I do sun gazing almost every day. What is my practice like? When the sun comes up in the morning, like I've got my window blinds open so I can kind of wake up and see. If it's a cloudy day, like, you're kaput. There's no breakfast, all right? It's tough. But if it's a sunny day, I'm like, oh, the sun is up. Get up, and I connect my pineal gland and my third eye directly to the sun. And I drink it in, and have it circulate through all of those subtle body layers until it coalesces in like a reservoir inside of me and fills me up in exactly the same way that you fill up a glass of water all the way to the top, and then I reconnect with the sun. And then throughout my day, I do my thing, and then when the sun is going down, that window back there is perfect for this. The sun is going down at the end of the day, I reconnect with the sun, and I sun gaze again, and I kind of give my report, like, okay, sun, this is what I've been doing all day. Thank you for the energy that you gave to me. Here's all the experiences I had. Here was my first person experience. And then, you have the restful time at night, and you wake up in the morning and do the whole cycle again. And all of this, by the way, is part of mitochondrial health. That there's some very good doctors now that are kind of starting to bridge that gap to help people, especially people who have chronic diseases, things like hormonal imbalances, infertility, metabolic problems with obesity, to restructure their metabolism through sun gazing. So human science is starting to encompass the miraculous nature of what it is to expose yourself to the sun in this very regular way, because we are light regulated body systems. So so I don't just eat light though. And this is like the funny haha but also kind of poignant story. So I came here as a walk-in over 20 years ago, and in the first couple of weeks of being in this type of human body, I was like, I got this, no problem. I'm just gonna sun gaze. And I'm sun gazing, and I didn't understand, like, what's that kind of like empty ow feeling inside? And like, why is my body getting smaller? I did not comprehend that you had to eat physical food to sustain this type of denser body. Then I learned about that. I'm like, oh, you gotta do that around here. Then I was like, oh, you gotta do that around here. You gotta chomp up objects with your mouth crystals, put them inside of you. So this is analogous to each one of you in your levels of human infancy, when you came here and were born out of the womb, and you had to learn how to digest food. It's actually one of the biggest challenges when babies first are born, because you don't have a microbiome in your digestive tract, and you have been floating in amniotic fluid with all of your meals brought to you on a platter. No need to digest anything, living, like swimming through the amniotic fluid, living the life of luxury, and then trauma of birth, wah, and now you're here, and they put things in your mouth, and stuff has to happen, and you're like, what is going on? Yeah, so it's very, very challenging. Babies need to learn how to breastfeed. Babies need to learn how to swallow without regurgitating. The intestines have to learn how to digest. It's actually a big part of the first couple of weeks of being here as a human infant. Now you guys have no problem with it. You're like, give me sandwiches, give me cookies. I like eating, because like you've mastered the primary lesson, the I am red chakra. Wait, where's my lasagna? Here. You've mastered the red chakra primary lesson of being here, which is I exist, and P.S. I'm hungry, feed me, I want food. So almost everybody masters that. And then that's a continual goal for your whole entire lifetime, right? So some of these people that have been so devotional and so reached such high levels of spiritual attainment, I talk about these in my notes from 10 years ago. One was from Bavaria in the 1940s, Therese von Neumann, and she was astigmatic, meaning that she had psychosomatic bleeding from her palms and her forehead in sympathy to the sufferings of the Christ figure that is written about in the Bible, in the New Testament. So just like a person who's really incredibly invested in that story, which again, like I don't want to overemphasize the suffering, which is also part of my mild criticism of the religion and some of those who follow it, because the original teacher was really teaching us so much about joy and about love and about compassion and about the miracle of being alive. And so much of the religion that has been built up around his presence is about suffering and death, which is, again, not the focus of everything that he was here for. But if you look at Krishna, who is also an avatar of Christ consciousness, a very, very different flavor of lightheartedness, celebration, singing and dancing, and not that one's entire devotional presence is defined by suffering. So just know that there are different cultural filters through which one is experiencing Christ via these different avatars. One is not more valid than the other, but I just want to encourage you away from suffering and towards joy. But anyway, Therese von Neumann, she didn't eat food for the last 25 years of her life, and she was observed. It was the modern world. It was 1940s. People would sometimes visit her, and she had like people that were watching her. And she was kind of plump too. She was not like one of these extremely slender ascetics from Asia, sitting in the Himalayas. Like they look pretty skinny. She looked pretty plump, and she used to spend her day just arranging flowers, like for the glory and the honor of Christ. Like that was it. She would just pick wild flowers and make these beautiful, extensive altars and arrangements. And so just imagine like a very, very pure person who was simply motivated by innate goodness and total love and devotion to her conception and definition of what Christ and who Jesus Christ is and was. And the point is, that's an information state. And that information state sustained her beyond the need for papaya smoothies. And what she used to do is eat 1 Eucharist a day. And Eucharist is the small round like cracker of devotion that is meant to allegorically represent the body of Christ. There's only a few kcalories in a Eucharist. In terms of objective materialist science, you would not be able to be sustained for 25 years on like 5 calories a day, and yet somehow she was. So I am not saying that all of you guys have to immediately renounce food, or even renounce food at any part of your life, of your journey. I am saying her life and her devotion existed as part of, like, people do things in a time and place for a reason. She brought a lot of people into greater levels of faith through the demonstration of what she was doing beyond food, because it's a lot. It's like Wim Hof, who is this person who can mountain climb in the Himalayas wearing, without a parka, even though it's frozen there. And he does a lot of breathing exercises and inner pranic exercises. And he is basically harvesting the same type of capacitation that many of the meditators from Asia, both Buddhists and Hindus, were able to do in that area of the world. Like he helps people to believe in something greater by the example of his physical mountain climbing in his life. Because you need to have like templates or people who have done it before you, and then you believe that it is possible. Or even something like running a marathon or running a 100-mile marathon. If someone just said run 100 miles, you'd be like, that's impossible, you can't do that. You're like, that guy over there did it. You're like, okay, I have to redefine what is possible. And so much of this has to do with information states. That is what light is. Light is an information state that is a structure inside of you that pretty much determines your worldview and what you think is possible. All right, so now you can comprehend why this is a very, very powerful aspect of your consciousness anatomy and cognitive and perception anatomy, and that if something was naughty and it wanted to come along and do something bad in your world, it would hijack that aspect of your being. because by hijacking that aspect of your being, it could not only implant false thoughts and false light and false expectations of the structure of reality, but it could also inhibit or block you from connecting to the truthful information stream that describes the true nature of empirical reality. And empirical reality is like the paintings that I paint. It's beyond negotiation. It's math. It's beyond negotiation. And empirical reality is really what we perceive when we connect all the way up here to the crown. And so wait, I want to go into the nanotubules and the poop crapola, but furry overlords in the house, very nice, we love your little guy. But I also want to talk about what, well, let me go into that because I can feel, I'm like wavering in indecision. Which timeline do I choose? Okay, let's choose poop crapola timeline. So now I have to draw this out for you. Okay, here is pineal gland. Oops, juggling a lot of things here, guys. Okay, so here is your pineal gland, and we'll always draw it in indigo blue because it is affiliated with the indigo blue chakra. So you have this little, it is like a eye, but it does not have an aperture in it. So it has a retina. Wait, get a different color. This is the retina. It has photoreceptive cells in your pineal gland. And then it also has either nano or monoatomic crystals. That's what these little purple dots are. And those act as antennae and transceivers. So in your physical optical eyes, here's a beam of light. Hi, I'm a beam of light, but this is not how I draw it in my class path of light, but this is how we draw it in the traditional model, and I'm going to enter into somebody's eyeball and then hit the retina and stimulate it with information. But in the pineal gland, there is no opening, there's no aperture, so there is not a way for light to come inside of it in that traditional sense, and also it's in the deep interior of your skull, and light doesn't go in there. So how are the photoreceptors stimulated? And the answer is they're stimulated via thought. So this green dot line is meant to represent a thought that goes on in there, beep 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 beep, or maybe we can show it like this, like a waveform, beep 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 beep, waveforming on in, and then stimulating those photoreceptor cells so that they create a picture. So now let's talk about your imagination. The pineal gland is totally related to your imagination and is totally related to Christ consciousness and is totally related to the capacitation to envision and manifest realities. Before you create something, first you envision it and you see it. The thing that you're creating can be something as simple as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or as complex as one of my artworks. But what they have in common is the sense that before you go through the macroscopic physical movements of getting up, going to the kitchen, getting the bread, getting the jar, getting the knife, putting the sandwich together, or sitting down and painting the painting with various little bristle brushes, you have the envisionment in your mind. You envision it. So you can do a little imagination exercise with me if you want to right now. You can keep your eyes open or you can keep your eyes closed, but I want you to envision with your inner eye, imagine a purple cupcake and see it and see what it looks like in your mind's eye. So you're not seeing it in front of you, like I'm looking at a tree through my window over here. I do not see a physical purple cupcake, but in my mind, I can see it. I can see the icing. I can see the sprinkles on top. I can see the little silver paper that it's inside of from the oven. That is the activity of thought stimulating the photoreceptors inside of your pineal gland. And if we were to follow that model, first I would envision the purple cupcake, and then in order to manifest it into consensual five senses, what is called quote unquote external reality, we would go to the store and get some ingredients, including some kind of nice natural purple food coloring, and then put them together according to the recipe, bake them in the oven, take them out, do the whole procedure, and then be able to have the physical thing in front of you. That is a profound spiritual activity. I want to say it's a magical activity, but only in the sense that magic is defined by, anything that is so incomprehensibly sophisticated that it is defined as magic. It is a procedure, that there is a recipe for how you make stuff happen. So now you can comprehend why the pineal gland would be diminished in the human form, the type of form that I came into 20 years ago, in what you consider to be the natural human form, the human form of mortals of this time. This genetic code was assaulted and degraded to diminish the functioning of your pineal gland so that you could not effectively imagine and envision purple cupcakes into existence, because it's a huge empowerment. It is a huge empowerment, and the control system of the world of suppression that you are coming out of and that you are flying to freedom from did not want humanity to have access to those capacities. They are the capacities of your higher faculties. And when you really have your higher faculties, I want to say humming at all speeds or moving at top speeds, you do not need the intermediary of a grocery store to be able to manifest your purple cupcakes. And I'll go back to my face and we'll just chat a little bit, and then I'll go back to that whiteboard and I'll finish telling you about poop crapola. In this class, people have shared wonderful first-person experiences of the manifestations that they have done directly from their mind, mostly unconsciously, and in a funny way, often involving coffee. Because we wake up in the morning, we're like, I'm gonna need some coffee. And then you look and there's no coffee left. I'm gonna have to get creative. So it's funny, a lot of people shared their stories of magically, quote unquote, I'm just gonna reach into the cabinet. There's gotta be some coffee in there. And you're like, look at that. There is an extra pound of coffee back there. Or sitting down in a park outside and there just happens to be a pound of coffee there, or whatever it is, or a wheelbarrow, or in my case, tiny screws of exactly the right size that I needed for a particular building project. That we do have this capacity to literally manifest matter out of our mind. It is right now a largely uncontrolled, not unconscious or subconscious, but supra-conscious capacity or unexplored potentiality. That ascension is the process of us exploring and reclaiming that fully. It is the process of us reconnecting to Christ consciousness, divine intelligence, God, and being guided to manifest the things in our lives that we need to sustain ourselves beyond wheelbarrows and beyond tiny screws and beyond cups of coffee, manifesting even larger edifices, even bigger things like a house or an entire city or something like that. So you might hear that expression, the imagination is the limit, the imagination really has no limit. And then this becomes the capacity to imagine into being literally anything you need. Manufacturing is no longer a necessary intermediary step to what you are experiencing. You go directly into manifesting and experiencing. And that's what life was like in the world of ancient Atlantis. We didn't have factories. It wasn't I'm going to want to have a nice shirt to wear, so I'm going to design it, have the factory make it, then have them send it to me via FedEx, and then it arrives in my mailbox. No. What you would do is envision it in partnership, in divine co-creative partnership with Christ, the larger telepathic network, and then bring that into being as a process similar to birth. You birth it into being as a type of miraculous matter that you may then experience for the purpose of your learning, growth, and sustenance while you are here in the physical density realm that, where your somatic cellular physical body lives. And that is part of the self-expression, artistic exploration, and journey to remembrance of God's self. As you're learning and growing into your powers as a divine being, you're like, oh yeah, I can manifest a sweater, and I can manifest a house, and I can manifest this, and I can manifest that, and a whole planet, and organisms, and ecosystems, and so much more. And all of the learning and wisdom accrual that happens through that. And learning and wisdom accrual is being more light. Path of light curriculum. The more you learn, the more light you are. Light, you literally contain light. So the sun in the sky, it's totally not an artificial allegory, it's a direct allegory, a literalism, not a metaphor. The Son of God, as he is worshipped in the Christian religion, and the sun in the sky, that's Christ. It's a giant light body. It's right there in the sky every day, every single day, and showering you and this entire planet and all the organisms here with light, which is information. Like, hi guys, good morning to you. Here's a bunch of information, and the information is truthfulness, and the information is also timelines, possibilities, and probabilities. Jumping off over here to be able to grab my little sculpture. This is your light body. This is your time body. It's made of emanations from the sun. And the sun is literally feeding you every day with all of these expanded and updated timelines, possibilities, and probabilities. And you learn how to navigate them, and then you do sun gazing, and you give your feedback on them, and then you also flying rainbow lasagna, which is finding new and exciting ways to repattern or even generate new patterns that represent new combinations of light information. Okay. Poop crap all the time. Hope you're laughing because it's dark stuff. Wait. Okay, so here's that amazing drawing that I was doing for you. And now, so this is the inside of your skull. Wait, first let's draw this big giant circle around here in order to represent that we're inside of your skull, right? And then this is nanotechnology. Nanotechnology wetware, little tiny fibers of poop crapola that were breathed in through the persistent aerosols that were emitted by illusory supposed fixed-wing aircraft, but actually are interdimensional portals that hover on the threshold of observership and bring forward a type of matter that is non-terrestrial in its origin, but which interacts with your consciousness as observer in order to proliferate into existence, has been ingested through your skin and respiratory tract, and then self-assembling, meaning it was little tiny dots like this, and then the dots were exposed to different millimeter waves that connected them together and turned them into these little fibers and created a whole artificial fascia and artificial neural network of wires throughout your brain. And not just throughout your brain, but specifically in the retinas. So wait, let's draw some physical eyeballs. And what I'm sharing with you here is so incendiary. Here's some eyeballs, and here's your optic nerves that also go into your brain. This is like the most dangerous information I can possibly share with you. Revolutionary. And I'm constantly holding up shields to protect myself from blowback and to make it possible for me to be able to share this stuff with you. Because look, this is what happens and what my job is here. I see things with my inner eye, just as I do as a visionary artist, and I bring truth into this world. And then truth is on a platter at the banquet. It's like, you can eat it if you want to. Here it is, guys. It's cool. Eat it. And I like it much more when I do the lighthearted sharing of truth that is my beautiful rainbow paintings and other forms like that. But right now you live in a very perilous time when this poop crapola is essentially trying to hijack and distort and diminish your manifestation capacitation in Christ consciousness and in your pineal gland and in your third eye. And I want to tell you all about it from my viewpoint. I'm a first-person experiencer, and I am also oscillating outside of the system of control so that way I can have some perspective and some wiggle room. And I use my wiggle room in order to bring you the opportunity for freedom, to hold the space so that you have an opportunity to choose. Because otherwise you would just be mind-controlled zombies going down the cosmic toilet, being uploaded to not only augmented realities but virtual realities until your soul is so far down the cosmic toilet that there's pretty much only entropy, that there's like no real pathway back to the light which is organized, actual, intelligent information. So this information is really critical, even though, I told you I'd much rather be sharing positive rainbow information with you. And also, yes, I go out on a huge limb by doing this and saying this, and I'm able to do this because of the constant spiritual shielding and protection and self-protection maneuvers that I perform at all times, just in order to stay alive, but then also, and to protect myself, but then also to be able to share this information with you. So the nanoparticles have gone into it. So here's your retina over here. This red line represents the retinas of your optical eyes. Project Bluebeam is what happens when you get this nanotechnology into not only the retinas of your eyes, but also the optic nerves. So we're talking about the artificial wetware, artificial neurological system in your retinas, optic nerves, and all the way back here at the back of your brain. This is your optical processing center, and also has surrounded your pineal gland. So it's not only right now. I'm going to give you some dark stuff, dark news, bad assessments by a doctor, bad prognoses. Not just has your pineal gland been diminished in antiquity and your genes squashed and your natural Christ connection diminished or almost cut off completely, so that it makes it a huge spiritual attainment just to reconnect to Christ, and it's considered to be something that only the special people do. Because that's what happens. One person connects to Christ and is like, I just did this amazing thing and now I can see and know all of this stuff, and everyone else is still blinded and diminished and not able to be empowered in that way. And then many, many people look up to the person, that one guy or girl that got their third eye open and was able to see that stuff. But I am here to tell you, it is your birthright to be able to see and know and ingest that light. And that part of what Flying Rainbow Lasagna does is it allows for the reconfiguration of your formerly mutilated DNA back into its pristine condition, so that everybody can have an awakened pineal gland and everybody can be an awakened Christ. Just that is extremely revolutionary in itself. In this moment of planetary ascension, and this is a cosmic moment that has been going on for several decades, as you're like poised on the threshold, prepared to go from the world of objective materialism and represented only by the information of the five senses, and expand into a much greater level of reality that includes perception of the subtle bodies, perception of time itself, perception of light itself, like the abstract nature of light and information as a presence. To look at and see information as a presence the same way you can look at a tree and be like, yeah, there's a tree. You can be like, there's an idea, there's a cognitive structure. The huge empowerment of what's happening there. So you as a species are poised on the threshold of claiming that level of morphogenesis, which means form creation. And you had this invasion of the planet. Again, reverberative trauma, eek! And a bunch of poop got pooped into your eyes and into your optic nerves and into your brain and all around your pineal gland. And this happened to everyone who's here. So don't feel personally attacked by it, even though there are certainly targeted individuals who get extra boulders on top of them. Like, you're a troublemaker, extra boulders for you. We're gonna squash you harder. But everybody's got this as a way of further diminishing and distancing you from the creative, innate Christ capacity. And so what I see it as is like there is this light that is over here. Wait, let me draw it for you. So this is your pineal gland, and imagine these yellow lines. This is like light in exactly the same way that like a candle emits, or a campfire emits light, or the sun in the sky. Think of it as a miniature sun inside of your head that emits light. And then all of your neurons are supposed to be able to be stimulated by that light. Like, let's draw some purple squiggly neurons over here. And they're supposed to be able to connect with that light. That light is not only your innate imagination, like imagining purple cupcakes, but that light is also your higher directives that come from the sun, the stars, the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy. Tap, 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 the cosmic conductor who tells you what to think and where to go and what paintings to paint and what musical notes to play and what parts of your body should be connecting with one another and metabolizing and orchestrating everything down to the electron transport chain between your mitochondria and the papaya smoothies that you're digesting. That is supposed to be receiving all of its light and all of its directives from the pineal gland, from Christ, and then beep, 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 sending it out to all of your mitochondria in all of the cells, like cell, 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 all throughout the rest of your body. And instead, what you've got is all of these black scribbles, which are the nano wires, tiny, tiny, tiny wires that are made up of these graphene oxide tubules that are, they carry an electrical charge, and they are an antithesis type of wiring that is a barrier to your connection to Christ and Christ consciousness and self-experience of this awakening. So as I have ranted in the past against New Age shadow work, an insight came to me very recently in preparing for this class. So let's talk about what a shadow is. In a shadow, first let's say here's a light bulb, all right? And the light bulb emits light, all right? This is art class, everyone. Now we're in art class. There's your light source. Now let's draw an object. This is an object, like a green apple. Order of operations goes light source, object, and then shadow. Here's the shadow that is out behind the apple, and that makes it look, when you do your drawing, like it's actually sitting down on a table. Like, oh, look at that. There's actually a three-dimensional object on that table, okay? Order of operations, light source, object, shadow. But what you have over here is not light source, object, shadow. What you have is, light, wait, get a better color you can see. Light source, your pineal gland. Then poop crapola, then this would be you as perceiver over here. So instead of calling this shadow work, let's call this obstacle work, because what you're doing is examining the obstacle here that has been placed as a barrier between you, the experiencer, and your reconnection with Christ consciousness. And spoiler alert, it's you. Spoiler alert, it's you. Big spoiler alert. You're going to remember this, and I'll get to your wonderful questions. You're going to remember this when you have that reconnection, when you get the cosmic Windex, and you clear out the poop crapola, and you reconnect with your pineal gland, and with Christ consciousness, and with the larger telepathic Christ network, and you recognize, it's me! It's been me all along! You're going to remember this video, and you're going to be like, oh, Laura said it was me, and I can feel the truth that it's me. It's me. You're reconnecting with an aspect of your own self that you have been artificially distanced from or amputated from, and that has even been externalized and created as an object of worship and adoration, very appropriately. But when you get to these levels of spiritual attainment, you come to this recognition and realization that it's me, it's you. The pineal gland and the Christ connection and the telepathic network is actually you. So let's talk, so I want to go in two different directions, but I want to talk about, in a pristine world, what Christ is. Christ is a larger, multifaceted being, and it does not only contain human origin consciousness, it contains all sorts of origin-flavored consciousness. So it is a multifaceted viewpoint, in the same way that a bee or insect eye, like a bee or a butterfly, they have an eye, an optical eye that's very different than ours. It is structured like a faceted gem. I have some simple gems here, but nothing that's really multifaceted. Wait, let me see if I have something. No, I don't have anything that's like very perfect. Hold on, I do. This is a perfect analogy. This is what it's shaped like. This is a multifaceted little, like prism that makes rainbows in my window, all right? And every single one of these sides of this polygon is a facet or a face, and it represents an organism. And this overarching gem is Christ consciousness, the meta being. And every single face on it is a life, including your life. And I told you, Christ consciousness is baked into who you are. It is an innate aspect of who you are. So it's inside of literally every human here. It's inside of every tree. It's inside of every dog and every butterfly and every microbe and the planet herself. And it's inside of every photon. And it's inside of every star. This is deep stuff, and it also means that the number of facets on this gem is pretty much uncountable to your human neurology, okay? Every single one of those facets is a life, a viewpoint that is achieved through the first person experience of being alive. And your life has significance and meaning, and part of it is the puzzle piece, or that you are one aspect that is harmonically integrated into a much larger, bigger picture. So a bee or a butterfly has a composite eye that has many, 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 many facets, and each one gives a different viewpoint of reality. And then their tiny insect brain is amazing in that it knits together this overarching, multifaceted picture of reality into one truthful view of reality. Instead of seeing 10,000 different flowers, the bee knits that together into seeing one flower. It's like, oh, that's that flower. Now I'm going to go get some pollen or some nectar from that flower. That is what Christ consciousness is doing. Christ consciousness is experiencing through every single one of us, every single dog, every single microbe, and not just on this planet, and not just in this time. Multiple parallel realities, multiple timelines across time, and an array of different cultures and planets. Big. Christ could be considered a galactic scale being in the sense that it is not merely about human experience, and it is not merely about the experiences of organisms in Earth's biosphere. It is about experiences in the first person as facets on this gem across many different types of organism or creature. And that's what I talk about when I say that this is a collective. You might have piccolos that come from one particular planet place, and then you've got tubas that come from one particular planet place, and you've got humans playing your human song, and you all fit together into this amazing synchronized orchestra. This is the good stuff that I like to talk about, the pristine world, because in that world, it is a soul family. Soul family, like here in this world, your family means look out for each other. You love each other. You support and sustain one another. It is reciprocal. You're not alone in life. Like ideally in this world, your family helps to sustain you. They help you to whatever. Get a loan for your car, or, whatever, a deposit for your land so you can build your dream home. Like your family helps you. You know what I'm talking about? Even though I know that family in this time and place is fraught, and not everybody is connected to family. So the ideal, pristine definition here of what family is family's got your back, and they support and they sustain you, right? So we're talking about your cosmic family, family of coherent light. Ascended masters is part of it, and also it's other organisms from other time places that you have literally lived as those organisms. And Christ lives in you, and Christ lives through those organisms, and then through telepathy, which is natural love-based telepathy, which is what this organ is actually all about, which the nanopoop crapola has been assaulting through synthetic telepathy. The nanopoop crapola implants false imagery into your pineal gland. So it stimulates your pineal gland with false images, not the purple cupcakes of divine sustenance that you're supposed to be envisioning, but instead something else that serves this unsavory thing that should not actually be in existence, that is non-divine. So it serves non-divine thought. Errant signals are stimulating your pineal gland in order to bring into reality, through the hijacking of your manifestation capacitation, stuff that shouldn't be there. And the stuff that's stimulating you is already stuff that shouldn't be there. So to make that really, really clear, stuff that shouldn't be there is stimulating your pineal gland to then create more stuff that shouldn't be there. Big, big, big stuff to recognize what's happening here. But in a healthy, functional galaxy and cosmic fabric, all that you have is divine thought, and the divine thought stimulates your pineal gland so that you think divine thoughts, and you are a neuron and a processing node on a much, much larger divine mind system, and you imagine into being and manifest and generate realities that are divine reality structures. So in order to return to and regain that pristine system, you have to work hard. And that is one of the challenges, and also you're up to the challenge. It's literally what you came here for. So it might not be an easy ride. Like working in a pristine system, it's like, okay, like you do your job, you learn, you grow, and you remember, ding, I'm God. Here it's a lot more difficult because you're gonna have to block out a lot of errant signals and things that aren't supposed to be there. The process of discernment, the process of becoming an ascended master, figuring out who you are and who you're not. Figuring out when stimulations happen to your pineal gland. Is this a divine thought or is this not a divine thought? And that's big because every single impulse must be examined. Does this impulse actually come from God? Is this impulse actually divine? Does it actually sustain me? Or is this an impulse that is an errant signal? Is it a chaotic signal? Is it a non-life-giving signal? Is it a malevolent signal, an intentional implant that is designed to not only hurt or harm you, your biology, kill you, or kill or destroy your organisms, social dynamics, and planet? Got it? So this whole thing about catastrophe and the implantation of the expectation of catastrophe, that is the hijacking of your imaginative capacity. Those are non-divine thoughts. Envisionment of your own self-destruction and envisionment of your destruction of your planet, which sustains you, those are non-divine thoughts. And yet that non-divine perturbation exists. What to do about it? And the answer is Merkaba, Merkaba, Merkaba. So now let's go back to this little screenshot. This is from the lesson from 10 years ago. So your pineal gland is a transceiver, transmitter, and a receiver. And what is, so everything that's a superpower can also be a vulnerability. The capacity to sense and to be influenced is positive and wonderful. It's like your eyes are sensitive instruments, but your eyes can also be vulnerabilities in the sense of what is being put into them. You put a Merkaba around your pineal gland because it is a sensitive instrument that perceives frequencies. It eats light. It eats that which is non-tangible. And let's say that you're in a world where they put up 5G millimeter wave emitting poop crapola antennas and repeaters. And then the stuff that is coming to stimulate your pineal gland is stuff that isn't good stuff. If you have your Merkaba functional, then hopefully it would reflect away. Kapow, reflect away. Poop crapola. Here's poop crapola. Kapow, reflected away. But I will also tell you that this poop crapola stuff, like, it's pretty persistent. So one of the things to do is, yes, you envision the Merkaba, the protective star tetrahedral force field that is emitted by your pineal gland around your pineal gland. In the same exact way that you envisioned a purple cupcake, and you can see it in details and see the silver cupcake liner, you can envision the star tetrahedron, and it becomes a tangible, manifested force field around your pineal gland, so that way sustaining truthful thoughts and idea structures and true light can enter and stimulate your pineal gland and give you the corrected thought forms that you're supposed to have throughout your day that keep you going, that make you stay alive. And fling, reflects away like a, spinning disco ball, the non-life supportive errant signals or malevolencies, all right? But I'll tell you, I'm a pretty advanced user of the Merkaba, and I protected and shielded my pineal gland, and as I've been on this planet, and there's been more and more technological interference in terms of the emissions of these signals, it has been a huge effort to shield my pineal gland. Like pretty much constant. And you see me work with my crystals all the time. I'm constantly working to protect myself from the millimeter waves, and I am constantly performing, like running them as background programs, even beyond the moving of my mouth parts. Part of my attention is constantly focused necessarily on the shielding of my pineal gland from the stimulations that come not only now from externalized antennae that might be on telephone poles or something like that, but that are internalized. Because once this stuff self-assembles inside of you, doesn't matter. You can go to a desert island where there's no 5 millimeter wave repeaters and no cell phone broadcasts. It's inside of you. That's the whole point. Once the implantation occurs, which is what happened roughly 3 years ago, then you can run away all you want, and it's just going to be internal. So then you have to reach a greater level of capacitation with your non-physical psychic powers and Christ capacitation to be able to dismantle and shield yourself from the wetware, which is the internal poop crapola, internalized barrier between self and Christ, between ego, individuated state of your definition of like your name, like Charlie or Joyce or Art. That's you as an individual connecting to Christ. Christ is unity consciousness. Christ is literally, I'll say it again, the definition of consciousness. Consciousness is a phenomenon. It is a miracle. And that this is an experience of many, many, many different viewpoints all overlapping. And you have your individuated viewpoint, which is what is we are defining it as your ego state, which has a name, like Aurora or Charlie or Joyce. But this is the reconnection of your individuated self to the overarching network self. And when you do that, you don't lose self. You don't kind of melt and become this, like vanilla puddle where you're just like, there's no more me, I'm part of everything, and that means that I'm nothing. Not at all. You still maintain your very, very clear sense of self, even as you join with the rest of what is in existence. So if you are a musician and you play the piccolo and you join a band, you're not like, that's it, I don't play the piccolo anymore. You still play your music more than ever. In fact, you have to really focus on your music and staying true to your notes and your cadences, even while you are surrounded by all of these other musicians who are focusing on their music. And so you have to have actually very clear individuality, very clear boundaries, even while you are part of a group. So becoming part of the Christ telepathic network and the overarching meta-being of this multifaceted reality. It doesn't mean that you lose self or that you're no longer you. You are more you than ever. You are continually devoted to being you, even while you are part of something larger. You are you in a context, doing you and the emanations that are unique to you in the context of the other things that you are interacting with. So, putting up a Merkaba around your pineal gland itself is a great practice, but it wasn't enough for me. If it were enough, I wouldn't have had the problems that I've had over the past 2 years. What else do I do? So one of the things that I recognize is, let's bring up that picture of carbon nanotubules, if I've still got it from last week. I do. Fantastic. That's this down here. Get a better color. That's this right down here. And the nano means that it is on such a small scale that it pretty much, again, straddles the definition of what we consider to be matter to what we consider to be the energetic potential for matter. That is how tiny these things are. So these are not naturally occurring substances. Carbon nanotubules are something that are artificially created. The idea of Teslaphoresis is the idea that these individual tiny specks of matter are exposed to an organizational energy field that then causes them to assemble into one of these tube-like structures, and this tube-like structure has unique properties, including great strength for its size and the capacity to transmit electrical signals. Get it? Beep, 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 a little wiring that is in your brain or in your body, your cell-to-cell communication, but it is not your neurology, and it is not the same as the circulatory system of light, of ideas, that is supposed to circulate around and through your cellular structure and support you and guide you through the activity of being alive. Totally a technological invader, totally a false construct. But the liberation teaching is to recognize that every single one of these hexagons or six-sided shapes is a molecule of carbon, and that carbon itself is just a simple, innocent aspect of the natural world. That if you were to break bonds that are holding these molecules together, you would just simply have a bunch of carbon in your body. And your body has lots of carbon in your body. And that's from teaching from last week was about, this is coal, which is disorganized carbon, and then this is graphite, which is what's your pencil lead, slightly more organized carbon, and then this is your diamond body, Vajrayana, the body that is indestructible, body of spiritual attainment, body of pure crystalline organization, Christ, crystalline organization. That is your attainment. So if you break the molecular bonds of this poop crapola stuff over here, you're left with just a bunch of carbon in your body, and that carbon can either be literally pooped out and metabolized or rearranged into the correct structures that it is actually supposed to be arranged within in order to create your light body. And your light body is translucent because when you are diamond, you are like similar to this crystal. This crystal, light passes through it, so you can kind of see light through this. It's not 100% transparent, it is translucent. Light flows through it. That is what you become when you become a light being. That is what you become when you become a Christed being. You become a highly organized crystalline structure of both structured water and carbon, the way that it's supposed to be formatted within your cellular structure of your body, and you become a circulatory system of light, or a processing node, on an enormous supercomputer that is a biological supercomputer that is so complex that it bridges across time and dimensionality. And that is what this process of spiritual attainment and becoming Christ and planetary ascension is really all about. So the empowerment teaching, again, is to break the molecular form. Take my Path of Light class, because I teach all about the comfy chairs and super comfy chairs. The way that molecules bond together by getting into little tiny gravity wells and then jump out of little tiny gravity wells. Molecular bonding as a convolution of the fabric of space-time consciousness. Just here, guys, just rearrange the fabric of space-time consciousness and change those convolutions, break those molecular bonds, and then break all your carbon nanotubules and they won't be troubling you anymore. Got it? Yeah, I know, it sounds simple, but it's actually very complex. It's like saying, well, this is how you play a Mozart symphony. You just like move your pinky, then wiggle your thumb, kind of do this stuff on top of the piano keyboard, and it all fits together. And it does. But of course, it takes a lot of mastery to do that. But that mastery is attainable, especially when you get to the level of reconnecting with Christ. Dun, dun, dun. That's why they put the poop crapola there, because they're like, we don't want these people to reconnect to Christ, because you become telekinetic. You get it? Telekinesis is like one of the baby steps of what you're able to do when you reconnect with Christ. You're not only creating matter, but like, of course, you're gonna, with your mind, I didn't finish my sentence, you are not only manifesting or creating matter with your mind, your true mind, but you're moving matter with your mind. Like, of course I'm going to move that stuff. And also that stuff is not just dead, stupid matter as it is perceived through the filter of like Newtonian physics in Earth's surface human science. Matter is seen as something that is alive. And matter is seen as something that is not merely some external stuff and junk. It's seen as something that is an externalized appendage of you. So then my sweater, instead of being like, this is a bunch of stupid stuff and junk and factory made it, becomes something that I imagined into being, that I sustain with my consciousness and that responds to my cognitive events and expectations. Big, 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 big stuff. And when you get to those levels of attainment, you are, of course, like able to break the shackles and remove the carbon nanotubules from yourself and others through telekinesis, but you're also able to do so much more in terms of consciously creating and upholding and sustaining the form and behavior of matter. And you can move it to huge levels of personal responsibility, because it goes against your mere whimsy of what you would like to create, and you move into levels of perfect divine reflection of the perfect divine patterns of consciousness that happen like at the galactic scale. You're like, oh, the galaxy is this perfect and that's how it's shaped, and then I'm gonna make stuff that's this perfect, shaped on a smaller fractal level. And none of that stuff is in my teaching from 10 years ago. Wait, I need to get some water. I have my beautiful structured water here. Guys, you know, it's another thing that's really, really gonna help you in terms of fighting against the carbon nanotubules and keeping yourself structured. Structure your water. Yes. So hold on, I have to just pour this carefully because I have all my electrical equipment just over here. I don't want to spill my water on there. But drink structured water. It will help you to structure the water that is inside of the cells of your body, the water that surrounds your DNA, as an information carrying device that informs your DNA and is informed by your DNA. DNA is also part of the circulatory system of light in your body. It is connected to the activity of your pineal gland and your imagination, but again, biologically separate from. So these things interact and exacerbate one another, but they are also separated structures. 3 hormones that are emitted from your physical pineal gland that can be perceived by science and are often spoken about. One is melanin. I already spoke about that. You go out in the sun and you become tan. That is because melanin is produced in response to the exposure to optical light. The next one is melatonin. Melatonin is beyond a sleep hormone. It is actually not a hormone, but it is an endogenous brain chemical that actually has a huge amount to do in terms of protecting us from millimeter waves. So that's part of the ongoing health series that I teach about on Patreon with my friend who is a holistic health practitioner. She's taught me an immense amount about melatonin supplementation. And basically, because of the presence of blue light from LEDs and computer screens and a false light sun that's in the sky, a big bright thing that's in the sky that does not emit the natural life-giving frequencies of infrared, but emits the non-life-giving frequencies of blue light, almost all of us are deficient in melatonin. Melatonin is traditionally produced, again, in the absence of blue light, which usually means when the sun goes down. And so humans here have said, it's a sleep chemical. It makes you feel sleepy. Take it as a sleep aid. But it's so much more than that. Melatonin is actually produced all throughout your day. And part of it is produced in your pineal gland, but part of it is produced in the individual cells of your body and is part of the currency that mitochondria use to create energy in your body so that you can do things like walk on a treadmill and talk and do stuff. And melatonin helps to protect cells from damage. So here's one example. If you have a cell over here that gets damaged and it doesn't have very many healthy mitochondria, each cell can contain hundreds of thousands of mitochondria, and let's say it's down and it doesn't have that many healthy mitochondria. Got this cell over here that's like, hey, I see you're not looking so good. I'm gonna build a melatonin bridge and I'm gonna send you a care package or like a GoFundMe, and you're gonna get your melatonin and your healthy mitochondria, and then this cell gets better and doesn't die. And that can also happen in terms of protecting cell membranes from mutilations and cell damage. And melatonin is not innate only to the animal kingdom. Melatonin is also present in the plant kingdom. So plants, when they experience stress or cellular damage, do not have feet that can run away like we do or squirrels do. If something bad is going on, they're like, I'm running away, I'm getting out of here. And if a tree has something bad that's going on in its neighborhood, it's like, I don't have feet and I can't run away. So what it does is produces a lot of melatonin. And it protects its cells in that way of producing these protective, positive, life-affirming chemicals in the body. So part of the anti-life agenda that is being perpetrated here, let's call it anti-Christ. Part of the because it is literally, this is your Christ consciousness. And the technology that has been deployed in this world is anti-Christ. It is against the awakening of your pineal gland and your third eye in order to be capacitated in life. And part of what has been happening there has been changes of light sources, even to the point of, more recently in the United States, outlawing the use of incandescent light bulbs, which emit mostly, like something like 45% infrared light. And first of all, infrared zaps your nano. Do it. Get a little infrared light panel, even though they're LEDs, but you can get the kind that are still shaped like a bulb, like for hatching chicken eggs or something. But I have a little LED infrared light panel that works at nanometer wavelength 650 and 850. So one of which is visible light and looks red, one of which is not visible light and feels like heat. And I use it up above my head when I wake up in the morning. Sorry for the beeping. My treadmill automatically turns off after a little while, and now beeping is happening again. And we'll start again. Okay, we're back. I have my little light pad plugged in next to my bed. I wake up in the morning. I don't even have like the contact lenses on. I'm not awake. Not a functional human yet, but I turn on my infrared light panel and hold it up above my head like this, as if the sun is rising. And infrared does penetrate 8 centimeters into the body. It does not just go in 2 centimeters into your skin. It penetrates into your skull. It actually goes into the cerebral spinal fluid that is in they're called sulci, or the convoluted surface of the cerebrum, where cognitive thought, as it is defined by humans, happens, and bounces around in there. And that is one of the places where you've got the poop crapola. And the infrared fries the poop crapola, as it also is doing a lot of other positive, health-giving, and life-affirming things that you'd want to do even if you didn't have poop crapola to fry. For example, it changed the viscosity of water that is in the cellular realm, and mitochondria have these little things that are in their membranes that kind of turn like turbines. And when there's a high viscosity of water, like when the water's cold, the turbines are like, like pushing a bicycle wheel, this is so hard, this is so hard, this is so hard. And when you are exposed to infrared light, which is heat, which is a form of intelligence, take my path of light class, it makes the viscosity of the water less, and the little turbines can turn like as fast as jet engines, literally 19,000 times as fast as they could turn previously. You can generate more energy. There's less friction, there's less resistance, you can generate more energy. So that's why I first happened upon infrared as for athleticism, sports performance, and recovery after doing athletic activities, like flying your lasagna dancing, other good stuff like that. It helps your body and your mitochondria to optimize energy production, energy output, and energy usage, and then it also encourages collagen production and athletic recovery in the sense of stem cells and rebuilding after you challenge your body. So I use it first thing in the morning. I use it above my head, on my face. When I use it on my face, close my eyes. Being exposed to excessive amounts of blue light damages the retina. There are photoreceptive chemicals in the physical optical eyes of your body that are like old Polaroid film, where you kind of develop a photo. And when you sleep at night and when you're exposed to something like candlelight or campfires, that's when your eyes are supposed to regenerate. But nobody does that anymore. Everybody's staring at a TV, staring at a phone, staring at something that is blue light almost all the time. Your eyes almost never get a chance to regenerate. And then it doesn't get a chance to recreate those photoreceptive chemicals that are called rhodopsin, which are present in things like bilberry and carrot. And people call it macular degeneration. It means your eyes don't perceive stuff anymore. But what you really need to do is rest your eyes and perceive only infrared light, which is heat. And so you close your eyes and allow the infrared light to penetrate through your eyelids into your retinas. And it has a regenerative effect on your retinas. Amazing stuff happens. And it also penetrates deep into the lower layers of your epidermis where collagen is produced. Collagen being the protein structure substrate that helps your skin to retain its form and not to kind of like sag and go out of form. And it makes more stem cells and collagen at that level. And then, so use it on my face like this, and then move it down my torso. And then at the end of my day, after athletic stuff, I'll use it on my back, I'll use it on my hips and my knees, and especially on my feet. Feels fantastic. Get into there at the end of the day, and it helps you to fall asleep, actually, to use the infrared light and put your feet on top of the infrared light so that it kind of goes into your muscles and your tendons. It feels wonderful. Okay, so this is my way of doing it in the modern world. In another culture or time or place, you would do sauna. And for those of us like Hans, is a lovely person who's a student of this class for many years. He lives in Sweden, up above the Arctic Circle, and the sauna is a normal part of their culture. That's how you stay sane in the wintertime. You get inside of a hot box and your cells are exposed to heat. That form of infrared heat is intelligence. So sauna is one way of doing that. It's escaping my mind. What are some of the other ways of being able to do this in other times and places? Campfires. Heating your home with either a wood stove or a campfire. Radiant heat. I joke, it feels like you're being cooked all the way through. It's very, very different than like the electric baseboard heat that we have in most modern houses and apartments, where like your house, it says 72, but like, why do I still feel so cold? Why do I feel like an uncooked chicken? It's because what you need is radiant heat, and the radiant heat is what you feel when you are in front of a campfire or like a fireplace fire, and you kind of reach out your hands and you kind of feel it go into your hands. That is a form of intelligence, a form of divine intelligence coming into your body. So it has huge informative and life-giving qualities to be exposed to infrared heat. Just, the Antichrist technology is dissolved by infrared heat, is dissolved by intelligence. It is dissolved in the presence of true light. There have been many, many different things in the Antichrist agenda here in this world to remove from human exposure the things that give you true information. Blocking out the true sun and putting an imposter sun, a light source in the sky that is not natural. Having humans focus their tendril of attention. I'm reaching out my tendril of attention. I'm touching on my iPhone. That's what most people are touching with their tendril of attention throughout the day, ingesting the blue light into there, and then not being able to even legally buy incandescent light bulbs anymore in the United States. They just outlawed them. You can still find them in some specialty shops and stuff. So I want to say hoard, covet your precious light bulbs, everyone, if you've got regular incandescent light bulbs. And so that's what I do in my bedroom for going to sleep at night. Only incandescent light in my bedroom. For like the hour before I go to sleep, I turn on only the incandescent lights, and I also yellow shift all of my electronics all throughout the day, no matter what I'm doing, unless it's doing a Photoshop where you have to have correct color. Go into display and brightness in settings, then go to where it says night shift, press enable manually, and then turn it all the way up to yellow. And you're going to be like, it looks so yellow. Everything looks so weird. You will adjust. Don't worry. It is a small inconvenience in life and a small price to pay for you not to have to be ingesting this blue light. Or you can get the blue blocker lenses, which are glasses that you can wear that have a coating on it that blocks out the blue light. And people wear that for doing Zoom communications and all sorts of other things. Their eyes don't get fried all the time. And all of these things really, really do help with waking and sleeping cycles. So I got 2 of the hormones already. Melanin, response to light. Melatonin does influence your circadian rhythms, but also so many other aspects of life. And you can supplement your melatonin very, very effectively in your body, not digestively because it is burned by your stomach acid, but through absorption. So you can put it on topically, absorb melatonin through your skin, sublingually, and via suppositories. So, it's a bit, whatever, unorthodox to do it in the third way. But I take melatonin powders and liquids and other things like that, and I mix it into skin creams, and I put it on a daily basis. And that also really helps with athletic recovery and protects me from the cell wall damage that happens from exposure to 5G, because 5G is kind of like microwaving the physical cells of your body. It's cooking your flesh. Put on some melatonin, guys, and protect yourself from cooking your flesh. And if you want to know, like, where do you get this stuff, I go to bulksupplements.com, and they've got powdered melatonin, and you mix it into whatever is your favorite type of face cream or body butter or whatever, hemp seed butter for your skin. And then also I found Now Brands has a liquid melatonin. It's meant for sublingual, but it's in like a glycerin base, and I just rub that on my skin, and I find the absorption rate is pretty good. So you can experiment with those things. I bring this up to you because these are like battle support for you in your fight against Antichrist and to reconnect with your Christ. Definitely protective. And what do I feel when I cover myself in melatonin? I feel not only much less fried by the 5G, I have much less synthetic telepathy, intrusive thoughts. So that poop crapola that I showed you, like here's your true pineal gland, right? Here's your true pineal gland, and then here's all of the black wetware and stuff like that that's trying to invade and inhabit and come between you and your cerebrum and your pineal gland, like a barrier between, an obstacle between you and them. That stuff to me isn't just inert stuff. It's not just silent poop. It's talky poop. It's got a garbage mouth. It says a lot of poop crap, and it's synthetic telepathy. It says things that are non-divine thoughts, and that's hugely distracting to have that in your auditory centers or to have false imagery beamed into your visual centers. And that is what it does. And I know I'm not the only experiencer. There's a lot of people experiencing it. Otherwise, I might, Otherwise, I might question my sanity. But I don't question my sanity because there are so many others who are experiencing this. I'm like, wow, this is environmental. This is not a question of my own personal experience. So find solidarity and take heart. You're not the only experiencer. It is actually endemic in your planet, and also this is what we fight against in order to find personal attainment and spiritual liberation. The third hormone or endogenous brain chemical that your pineal gland emits is DMT. So everybody's like, oh, DMT, Aurora, and I'm like, no, because I don't take DMT and I don't take ayahuasca. So look, DMT is traditionally only emitted by your brain as an entry and exit event, not a recreational substance. It is meant in terms of the quickening when your spirit comes into the gestating form that is in your mother's womb and comes in and is able to inhabit and move your physical form. That is the first time that DMT is released in your brain. And then the second time DMT is released in your brain is when you die, when you exit, all right? It's not really something that I think that you should play around with in between those two life events. And people say DMT, they think that I'm all interested in things like that because of my paintings that I paint, but I don't paint them under the influence of DMT or other things like that. I do this through, self-cultivation, and I am an advocate of cannabis use, but and cannabis use does help your pineal gland. What are the things pineal gland health? What helps it? Ormus, which is the superheated salts that help to revivify the natural crystalline structures that are in your pineal gland. Didn't even talk about the crystalline structures yet. So you don't take fluoride. You clear out your pineal gland. Holy basil or tulsi helps you to clear out your pineal gland of the calcification and goop in between your microcrystals that's preventing them from vibrating effectively. And then you do take the ormus, which is superheated salt, like NaCl, that changes and has a spin when it achieves a rate of spin on a molecular level under high states of heat. And when you put that into your body, it goes into your pineal gland and it exacerbates the activity of your pineal gland. So does cannabis. And cannabis is wonderful, good stuff. But first you have to clear out poop crapola. So you don't put clean food on a dirty plate, okay? first you must wash the dishes. Wash the dishes. So I lived in San Diego for like a year. I called it like San Diego's like hell. I did time there. I didn't really enjoy it at all. It's a fluoridated water system. Even though I filtered my water, it was in the cooking water and you're washing your hands and you're bathing in it. It's just unavoidable. And so it's necessary to do a pineal gland detox to get that stuff out of your pineal gland, wash the dishes, so that way you can perceive clearly, or I should say like wash your windows, so that way you can see through them clearly. Again, I didn't get into this, so share this picture. Pineal gland is supposed to be like a lens. Your third eye is supposed to be like a lens. So if we go back to this and you see this shape over here, this is like in front of your face. It's like you can imagine a bubble or a lens in front of your face that is your viewpoint. And so for humans, this would be considered your anthropological or anthropocentric, human-centered, human-shaped viewpoint. It is the lens through which you perceive the abstract nature of raw, uncollapsed waveforms and interpret them into a reality structure, in this case, in the context of what it is to be a human. But if you were a dolphin, it would be your cetacean-shaped lens. And if you were a dog, it would be your canine-shaped lens. You see the world through the biological preconceptions based upon what it is to be a dog, what it is to be a human, what it is to be a dolphin. And it's almost impossible for you to imagine, because you don't have the sensorial realm of a dog or a dolphin, what their biases are. But please know that you have biases just from being a human, just from being in this particular biological architecture. When you are in Christ, in that multifaceted state of being, of the overarching meta-being, your biological biases diminish, and you are in your eternal state of who you are as an ascended being. There are ascended dolphins in Christ. There are ascended dogs in Christ. There are ascended humans in Christ. Your biological biases become secondary, not primary, and then you are able to relate as pure consciousness to these other aspects of consciousness who are equally valid facets or viewpoints on the larger network of what is Christ. And now please expand that into non-terrestrial life, of things that might be a creature that's shaped totally differently, that comes from a totally different ecosystem or totally different form of biological architecture, that when you are in Christ, you're not about like, oh, like, do you eat apples? Do you eat potatoes? Do you eat fish? Do you swim in the water? Do you eat gophers? What do you eat? Like those preconceptions become secondary to who you are, defined in a different way beyond your diet and the functioning of your biology. And this is all necessary education for you so that your expectation is prepared, so that you are like, you're ready, you're primed for being able to meet other levels of consciousness and be like a galactic citizen. When you're a cosmopolitan citizen, you know, some things matter and some things don't. So like now we're in this world where it's like, what is a person's skin tone and how much melanin they have in their skin? It's considered to be just a non-starter. You don't really ask like what percentage of melanin do you have in your skin? Can I talk with you or can I not talk with you? Or what is your caste system based upon that and your social structure? We just don't do that anymore. And it's considered to be like, very low level, like you haven't evolved past that. And it's the same thing in the levels of galactic civilization. Like you must evolve past the biological biases that you have in order to be able to play in the band and recognize and validate consciousness that is having a very, very different experience and a different trajectory, equally as valid, equally as important and useful to the overall symphony of life as your life as a human. So all of that, like you got to get beyond the Bible stuff that basically says nature is a hierarchy and the pinnacle of that hierarchy is man, and man is above woman, and all of you are above the plant and animal kingdom. The world is yours to exploit. Please go chop down some giant redwood trees and pollute the oceans. Like that's, the Bible. That basically is very, very erroneous in that sense. And you move into a different perception of life and ecology, as you are not separate from the ecology, but you are at one with the environment and you are a part of the planet, and your whole entire planet is a group consciousness, and then also the group consciousness of your planet is a node on a much, much larger network of group consciousness. So the invasion of poop crapola the past couple of years ago really has been to inhibit the effective cell-to-cell communication of organisms in this planet. Humans communicating with dolphins, communicating with dogs. That is what true telepathy is supposed to be. So let me talk a little bit, rant a little bit about true telepathy. True telepathy takes place on a bridge of love. That means first you have to learn to meditate and generate love. Love tone. And when you get enough gas in your car, then you don't have to augment. You don't have to implant a magical crystal up here or create a giant millimeter wave system or nanotechnology or anything like that to be able to talk mind-to-mind communication with others. You do it with your natural stuff. That's it. It's like saying if you're going to run a marathon, you run a marathon with your natural muscles, not with an artificial exoskeleton that moves your arms and legs for you and just kind of runs you through the course of what the marathon is. So there's a huge distinction to be made in the world of frequencies and thought forms between those who are natural, like the Aurora Collective, me, and our thought forms, and we're natural athletes, cultivating ourselves across multiple lifetimes and parallel dimensions to be able to have enough love to activate these Christ centers, to be responsible Christs, and do it all without technology. In opposition to those guys who want to cut corners and do it the easy way. Be like, I will implant a magical crystal inside of my head, and then I will be Christ too, and I will be powerful, and without learning any of the life lessons or wisdom accrual of how to actually reach that level of spiritual attainment and use those powers effectively. Got it? I'm going to skip all of the life lessons and go directly to the empowerment using technology. That is wrong. And I'm being facetious and lighthearted in it, but those guys, they're not good guys. And sometimes those guys who are not good guys implant poop crapola in your mind, invade your planet, and try to present themselves as your friend. I'm your friend. I'm not a mental invader. In fact, I'm greater than you. In fact, those guys that are not your friend, they're responsible for the genetic degradation that initially distanced you from Christ. So they took a Christed society that is known as Atlantis, formerly Lemuria, crashed you down into amnesia, and then pooped all over your pineal gland, and now as in your diminished state, they come and they reconnect with you, and they're like, I'm your friend, and I'm greater than you, and I'm running a marathon using an exoskeleton. And meanwhile, you are a natural spiritual athlete who's been horribly mutilated and diminished by this thing. That is definitely not your friend. All right, you understand where all of my anger and dissatisfaction comes from. It is righteous wrath, because I get really upset as a planetary protector when I see others being exploited through your partial information or total ignorance. If you are blinded, or if you are incapacitated in some way and something comes along and pretends to be your friend and it's not, and you accept it as your friend, I'm like, no, wait, hold on, you need to know, wait, stop, let me read those ingredients for you. What's really in this can? So let's say someone comes along and offers you med beds. I'm your friend, have a med bed. And I'm like, wait, let me read the ingredients for you in that can, and then you'll decide whether you really want to do that. And you find out that these are actually like the perpetrators who have caused harm, degradation, and disease, and they've literally been energy harvesting off of you for millennia. This is all lesson 18 stuff, the cat's out of the bag. And now they're offering you a shiny trinket to have a med bed as long as you accept them as your overlords. That is a very, very bad deal that I would never want you to do. But please, in freedom, choose to open that can, but now at least you know what the ingredients are, okay? I know that I did like a lot of, did a lot of ranting and a lot of things that are about, I didn't get through all of my notes. Okay. I got that. If you're wondering, I'm looking on my notes and reading if I'm making funny faces. Okay, the past 2,000 years has been known as the age of Pisces. It has been an age defined by the journey between this level of seeing and this level of seeing. So let me now describe the difference between these two levels. When you are getting your energy back up to levels of pure abstraction, from the physicality level of the denser sensorium, and you are preparing broadcasts to send back to the sun and the stars. Although it is a non-linear journey, you do go through ages, and we are exiting the age that is the age of Pisces, that is defined by the journey from brow to crown. It has been a very fraught 2,000 years. Although a great teacher came here 2,000 years ago, this has not been a time of peace. Why is that? Because when you activate this and you start to get more light, but you're not yet being guided by God, that's the most vulnerable time. Most vulnerable time in an individual's spiritual attainment and in a planetary or cultural dynamic overarching ecosystem of thought in its evolutionary levels of development. Because this is the time of mania, when people have an inner awakening, either through molecules or through, imbalanced biochemistry, or a kundalini, or whatever they call it, shaktipa experience, like a blow from spirit makes that energy rise on up your spine, and kapow, you get kind of like punched in the third eye and you have an awakening. If you just get to this level but you're not at this level, huge opportunity for misinterpretation of information, because seeing at this level is to see and comprehend through the biases of your biological lens what it is to be a human or a dog or a dolphin. It is only when you keep going on the journey and get up to this level of pure abstraction that you're in the realm of empirical truth, where you don't argue and you don't negotiate. 1 + 1 = 2. So at this level here, you're like, 1 + 1 = 2, but sometimes it's like this, and sometimes it's like this, and moral philosophy says this, and then this ancient philosopher says this, and then this guy says this, and this guy says this, and in this circumstance it's this, and in this circumstance it's this. And that's a huge level of confusion and vacillation, as opposed to the focused, non-negotiable truth that happens when you get to this level. So, when you're on your journey of personal spiritual attainment, your energy is rising like water is filling up a glass of water, and you get up to this level. Just know that that's not the end of your journey. Please reserve all of your judgments and conclusions until you get up to this level, because when you're on this level, you can see information and wildly misinterpret it, have completely the wrong behavioral outgrowth as a response to information stimulation. And what if you wanted someone to have wildly inappropriate behavior? Artificially stimulate them up here to give them a false view of reality. Right now, over the past 3 years, you live in an illusory realm, even more illusory than the ancient illusion, what they call the world of Maya from the Hindu empire, of like spiritual illusion. Yeah, you live in a world of spiritual illusion, but now you live in an augmented reality level of spiritual illusion within that world. It's even more illusory. Why? Why does that exist? Beyond entertainment, quote unquote, or personal convenience or commodification, that exists for behavioral control and the diminishment of your spiritual advancement. Because it's one thing to say, like if you want to control people, you could be like, okay, I'm going to be the puppet master. I'm going to implant stuff in you. I'm going to make your arms and legs move and do stuff. But another way to control people is just to control the information that is available to them. Like if I stimulate you and I make you think that there's like a giant, whatever, elephant over here, then you'd be like, I'm going to run away from the giant elephant. I'm going to run over here. There's no elephant. There's nothing there. I've simply artificially stimulated you with an illusion that behaviorally controlled you to run over here. And if that sounds familiar, like you can take that as a template for the events of your world over the past 3 years. Illusory monsters and boogeymen and communicable diseases that I can't mention right here, right now, but which I mention much more openly on my Patreon. that made people run in various directions and stand 6 feet apart and put things over their face and mouth and subcutaneously ingest things and do stuff because their perception was being hijacked. So it's not 100%, because when you puppet master and you pull the strings on someone, then you can have much more focus. But this is a way of herding, you got it? Generally corralling organisms, populations into various directions. And of course, within that, you have a huge amount of wiggle room. A lot of people are like, wait, I know that that's not a real elephant. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to run in this direction instead. You still kind of don't know what you're doing, but you're like, but I'm not going to listen. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do something. And also, it's good to be non-compliant. I applaud your non-compliance. And also, because you're doing the best you can, even without clear inner directives. Flying rainbow lasagna, which is actually acting from this level of pure empiricism and pure calculative power, but is also a level of unpredictability, because this thing that is the poop crapola wants total predictability, and so it is attempting to hijack and corral and diminish your creative capacity. And when you're like, throw the poop crapola out the window, I'm going to flying rainbow lasagna, what you do is you jump up and over all genetic obstacles, connect to the divine, get your mandate from the librarian of the universe that says, don't read those books over there. That's all nonsense, and it's been censored and edited and expurgated. You're not going to get any true information from reading that over there, but read this, this, and this right here. And then you'll be empowered in its empowerment information. And then that's your fresh groceries. And then you come back into your daily waking state of being, and you're like, good, I got my fresh groceries. So in order for me to do my sun gazing, I don't just do direct line of sight to the sun, because there's poop crapola in the way. There's stuff in the retina, in the optic nerve, in the atmosphere, and in the actual neurology between my pineal gland and the true sun. The inner sun inside of me has to jump over multiple difficult hurdles to be able to connect with the sun that is outside of me and send this signaling back and forth. So flying rainbow lasagna is a tool for this reconnection. It is a tool for adepts. You have to be really good in order to be able to use it. The difference in seeing between anthropomorphic, anthropocentric level and abstract level is to say, on the anthropocentric level, you look at human behavior and you're like, oh, that guy is motivated by this, or he did it because of this, or that you get an insight. Sometimes you get an insight about people's motivations where someone is offering you something like, hey, would you like this thing? And when you get the insight, you're like, that guy's only offering me that because of this, and he's got these motives, and he's this and that, skepticism comes up. It's connected to your intuition, but your intuition is more correctly, this is below my belly button, this is your level of orange. The level of orange is really where your intuition originates from. It's your reproductive system, and it's your guts. And those are another level of perception and cognition that complements your insight, which is your eye of mind up here. So you always trust your guts. If somebody offers you something, like, would you like this thing? Sometimes your eye of insight tells you everything, like, that guy is this, he's this, he's this, he's an axe murderer, don't get in his car, don't take candy from strangers, run away now. But sometimes you don't have that pure insight, you just have a gut feeling where you're just like, I feel nauseous and afraid, and I don't like what's going on, and I want to run away. And you trust that. You always trust that in everything that you're doing. But when you get to the level of empirical abstraction, you know the math. The guy offering you something is particle A, and you are particle B, and particle A and particle B are having an interaction that can be even mathematically described with the result C. And you do not want the result C to be that you crash into the membrane of death. You want the result C to be that you get your chakras in perfect alignment and realign with the source, which is God, which is divine consciousness, all right? So when you awaken your inner eye, recognize that that is not the end of the journey. Please keep going on your journey of self-development and attainment and running the marathon. Hold all conclusions that you might draw about reality until you actually get to here, until you get to the end of the tour. All questions must be submitted in writing until you get to the end of the tour. I'm joking. When you actually get to the level of pure empirical abstraction, there is no question, there is no doubt, there is no negotiation. It is mathematical, it is just, I don't have a word for it, because it's not like it's beyond feeling, because it's a deeply felt state, but it's a form of logic, but it's not the logic of the yellow analytical intellect, and it's not the logic of an artificial intelligence system. And I am at that level of logic, and people often would say, like, oh, like, you're an alien, and you're like Spock, because Spock is so logical. And I'm like, I'm logical, but I also feel a lot. So I'm not like a Vulcan that is totally unfeeling. So when you get to these levels of pure abstraction, you still have your heart. You have an enormous amount of compassion. You still have your guts down in there, insight, and reproductive attraction and revulsion, and things that you just feel. Passion is the word. You still have a lot of compassion in feeling and love for one another. You have a lot of passion in your animal emotions. You don't become a vanilla milkshake. And you also have the correct math. And the correct math supersedes all of this other stuff. It supersedes moral philosophy, quibbling the entire human library of what moral behavior is or isn't, what you should or shouldn't do, all of these philosophies, behavioral control systems, and religious systems. Because the answer is that it is not a one-size-fits-all answer. It's different in different circumstances. How can you tell when it's different in different circumstances? You can tell by seeing. This is seeing. That's it. So if I were to try to describe to someone who didn't have optical sight, like, how do you make pancakes? I'd have to say, like, well, you know, you pour the batter, you mix the batter until it looks right. It looks like it doesn't have any lumps in it. Then you pour the batter and you cook it until it looks bubbly. Then you flip it over and you cook it until it looks golden brown. Like, there's so many things about it where you can't say, like, you stir it 25 times. Sometimes you stir it 15 times. You don't always stir it 25 times. It depends. And then sometimes you cook it for 15 seconds on a side, but sometimes your pan is a different temperature and you cook it for a different amount of time on each side. So the sensory organ of being able to perceive time itself is critical in being able to receive your directives as to how to act as a divine being in the world, because it's different every time. In one circumstance, it might look like being a vegetarian. In another circumstance, it might look like being a 100% carnivore. In another circumstance, it looks like eating a chocolate eclair. It is not a one-size-fits-all dietary solution or life circumstance solution. It's like someone you're walking down the road and you meet a beggar on the street. Do you give them money? Do you not give them money? Do you give them a banana? Do you give them a coupon for the food store? What do you do? What is the righteous thing to do? And the answer is, it's different in every circumstance. Sometimes you give them money, sometimes you don't give them money. Sometimes you give them food, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you take them to buy food, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you talk to them, sometimes you do not talk to them. The righteous and divine thing is different in almost every circumstance. It's the complexity of life. There is not a one-size-fits-all behavioral garment that is true for everyone and true in every circumstance. And that complexity of life is literally why you are gifted with sight. Because you must see in the moment, and you must respond in the moment to the ongoing complexity of also the music. Whatever the band of life, the symphony of life is doing, it's a unique moment that has never happened before. You must always innovate. You must always respond in innovation to the ongoing, unfolding complexity of the cosmos in order to be an empowered galactic citizen and what it is to be an ascended master. So that goes without saying that it's very, very big stuff. Let me scroll through a few more of my different things. Okay, so your imagination has the same root word as imagos, which are like the cells inside of a butterfly. When the butterfly hasn't yet formed and is still a bunch of goo that used to be a caterpillar, it is imagined into being. It is the energetic structural form, or what humans sometimes call the morphogenic field. Morphogenic, meaning shape creating. Morphogenic field is a different space or realm, which is like the precursor to DNA. Your morphogenic world is the world that gives form to DNA, and then DNA gives form to your protein structures. Seeing with imagination is literally the most powerful faculty on your body. It's the strongest muscle on your body, and it is also your manifesting machine, and is used to send out waves that then coalesce into reality, into the third dimension. So the lens in front of your face is bidirectional. Not only do you receive waveforms from the potentials of reality that come through that lens that you then see through a human viewpoint, but you send out waveforms to the world from your human viewpoint of realities that you would like to experience. The brow and the crown that act together, and they act together in a dynamic partnership, and what they're doing is a type of gyrostabilizing that is similar to what happens in a helicopter. Just my notes aside. A helicopter has the the blades that spin around like this, and the rotors that spin around like this, and that is what you have with these two chakras. One is spinning around like this, and one is spinning around like this, like an angel's halo, and they interact. And there's no power struggle. There is no struggle. So in traditional marriages, there's like, I'm the husband and I'm the wife, and now let's fight it out, right? Like, who's in charge? Who wears the pants in this family? Who's determining our finances and where we live and what we have for dinner? I'm joking. Hopefully you're in a better relationship than that. But traditional gender roles dictate that there are some fraught power dynamics between males and females in their marriages. When I first recorded the class 10 years ago, I was not as socially well-schooled, and I just was like, yes, it's a beautiful marriage and a beautiful partnership. And then I learned, like, not every marriage is like that. I was in an ideal state, is what I'm trying to say, and I had to learn about the non-ideal aspects of marriage and partnership, which now I've certainly learned about. But you're in an ideal partnership with yourself and aspects of yourself, and your heart doesn't have a conflict with your lungs. Like, who's in charge of the circulatory system, lungs? You need me. Well, you need me. It's not like that. So your brow and your crown absolutely work together. And so if your crown says, hey, to your inner eye, look over there, your inner eye doesn't say, who do you think you are telling me to look over there? Your inner eye is like, I will look over there because my divine directive tells me to look over there. And also your inner eye, so the crown is like this super sensitive compass needle. The Christ chakra, the inner eye, it protects the compass needle. It is 100% protective. So in the same way that traditional male gender roles are to protect the female, so that the female can be making babies, which is kind of a delicate thing to do. Be like, you're pregnant, you stay home, I will go out and hunt things, bring home food. The Christ chakra, the indigo chakra, is meant to be a protective housing for the incredibly sensitive divine compass needle up here. And that there's no argument about modern day feminism that's like, I'll protect myself, get away from me, I'm a woman, I'm protecting myself. It's like, I agree, like, women should be empowered and protect ourselves, but don't project the gender roles of biological world onto your energetic anatomy, where everybody's unique qualities are celebrated. If you are a super sensitive aspect of anatomy, you need something to protect it. That's strong and not as vulnerable. Like, your eyes are sensitive and vulnerable, and you have these eyelids that come over them that protect them. So Christ is meant to be like that type of protective shield. Christ is meant to be a protective force field. And I know that there's some religious reverberations there of Jesus Christ being a protector, a protective force field. So Christ, most accurately, is supposed to be a filter, a protective filter, like not just protecting us from poop crapola, but there's a lot of that here, but really protecting us from the inundation of a tsunami of light that is so strong that it would disarrange you with the powerfulness of its presence. That is what your eyelids do. Your eyelids are like, that light is too bright. Just like make it not quite so bright. the light of plugging in directly to the sun and the stars, and that intensity of information could be disruptive and incinerate you because it's so strong. So the Christ is meant to protect you from over inundation. That's what that lens or that filter is. That's a positive thing to do. And it's supposed to allow through the correct amount of information in a nourishing way so that you grow from the information that is given to you. So when you go to the library as a little child, if I gave you a book that was about like murder and sex and drugs, that's like, you're way too young for that. It's gonna crush you. If I told you about the concentration camps of World War II, it'd be soul crushing. You don't tell that to a 5-year-old child. That child needs to grow up and develop more of a perspective and contextualization for what human existence is before you learn about like heroin addiction, World War II, genocide, whatever, sexual violence, all these things. You don't lay that trip on a 5-year-old, all right? And same thing with you in the awakening of your Christ capacitation to be filtered and protected so that what you learn is age appropriate and helps you on your levels of personal growth and attainment. So when little children have questions about sexuality, like they're not even sexually active yet, but they start to learn about things and wonder about things, you tell them as much as they can conceive of in their level of development. And then when they grow more, then they can learn and know more. That is what your journey is in terms of receiving pure light from the sun and the stars. If I gave you all of the light from the sun and the stars, it would be a heavy trip, it would incinerate you, there would be a lot of stuff that would be too much for you to handle at this age of your development. And real love is acceptance and celebration of who you are in the moment, of your level of maturity. It's like, okay, like this is how mature you are in the moment. This is your reading and comprehension level. We give you this at this level. But when you get to greater levels of comprehension and inner maturity, you're ready for the fire hose of knowledge, which is a non-interpreted stream of data that comes inside of you that is actually totally nourishing and totally uplifting. And that is how experts do star travel. That is when you go into an actual star. And you literally you rev up to light speed. You have all of access to all of this information of all truthfulness of everything everywhere. It's beyond what your human brain can do, but when you get up to that level, you're beyond your human brain. And you receive all of this light and all of this information, and it doesn't destroy you. It sustains and nourishes the eternal aspect of who and what you are. And you are lifted up and kind of fly on these wings of pure truthfulness as this fire hose of information is flowing through you at all times. So it's really difficult to be from that level of consciousness and then be here where there's like a tiny trickle. Because you're like, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, give me some light. And it's like, here's light, and it's like a tiny eyedropper. And you're like, I'm still hungry, I'm still thirsty, I need more light. Definitely a difficult time, place to be. There's very, very little information here. The food contains very little information. Definitely you're not getting information from like books, TV, and media. You're getting false light from all of that stuff. So there's a lot of stimulation, but very little information. That is big. That is big, 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 big. So please recognize that a lot of what you're ingesting here, like it's the stuff that you poop out. If you eat food, there's a certain amount of light in the food, and then there's fiber, undigestible stuff that you poop out. And if you eat food and there's 1% actual light in it and then 99% fiber, you're just like, you're gonna have to eat a lot of food to get your quotient of light. So most people here are in starvation in terms of real light, real information. And information from this perspective you might describe as inspiration. Because information is not just something that's dead, stupid data, take my Path of Light class. It is something that gives you energy and motivates you, what you call inspires. It is inspiring. So in this world, what is inspiring to you? Great works of art, great music, not the music that we mostly hear on the top 40 pablum, radio stations, computer generated. Now there's AI generated music. You will not receive inspiration from that. You receive inspiration from great works of art that melt your soul and make you feel deep stuff inside, and through interpersonal connections, and through the life journeys, sharing life journeys, when people really share about who they are and what they've been through, and their testimonies of how they've grown and changed. That's where you will find real inspiration comes from. It comes from real heart connections, and those are all of the things that this nano crapola and millimeter wave has attempted to prevent. I don't mean to make you feel bad when I tell you that over the past 3 years you've been cheated, because what you were supposed to be doing over the past 3 years was learning to be telepathic with the rest of the organisms on your planet. You were supposed to be able to learn mind-to-mind communication, not only with other humans on a bridge of love, but with plants and with animals and with bugs and microbes. And instead, you've had this implantation and constant stimulation with zero information that has prevented you from being able to play the real music of life, be part of the symphony of life, and actually do the work of becoming part of a telepathic society. So you got cheated on your education so far. Don't worry, you can catch up, but it's just like if you recognize a child has grown up in impoverished background or in a war, where it's like, oh, like that kid never had a toy, that kid never got to play, that kid never had an ABC's book, that kid is diminished in its development. You are all, as spirits, diminished in your development. And you need to be able to have an opportunity to catch up, which is learning to be telepathic. Your cells need to learn to be telepathic with one another. Shiki's telling me it's time for her WALK very soon. Cell-to-cell communication without nano-crapola getting in the way. Human-to-human communication. Human-to-dog communication. My dog and I are very telepathic, even in spite of the poop crapola stuff, because we have a very, very strong heart connection. You have to, oh my goodness, I'm losing my train of thought because I'm thinking about how much she needs to do something right now. Chiki, you're okay. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Hold on one sec. Just gonna pause this for a second. Because when you're telepathic, you can't just keep on doing your talking on the video over here, because someone else is like, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I need a hamburger. So yeah, somebody just got her hamburger over there. Wait, let me go through a little bit more of my notes. Oh my goodness. You've been living within the dream of Christ for the past 2,000 years, and that dream of Christ has been the journey from anthropocentric seeing to pure abstraction seeing. That's why there's been so much conflict and so much, my way, no, my way, no, I'm going to kill you. In the name of the true religion, I'm going to kill you. And all of that, all of those travesties that should, of course, never happen. So if you wonder why has there been so much of lack of peace and conflict, when there should have been peace and conflict, it's because you've been in the most vulnerable state of evolutionary development as souls. And then as you've been reaching this culmination of your birth into a Christed society again, something came along very, very intentionally and said, nice Christed society, you've almost got there. It would be a real shame if someone implanted you with a bunch of nano poop crapola, wouldn't it be? Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. You have to supersede this, and that is also part of the attainment. So this is kind of inspirational but not 100% accurate, but the overcoming of the obstacles is a part of your spiritual attainment, but I don't want you to look at them as your teachers, because God actually did not put those obstacles there. You're like, wow, there's an obstacle here, I'm going to jump over it, it's a hurdle, and I'm going to get stronger, and God put these here to make me stronger. No. You are going to jump over it, and you are going to get stronger, but God did not say, I think I'm going to make ascension extra difficult on this group. Sprinkle some poop crapola there. No. So it's like your response is heroic. You choose to grow stronger as opposed to wither and die. That is good. But it's an erroneous conclusion to draw at the level of here to say that those obstacles were necessary for your growth. Because they're not, and they weren't, and they aren't. Because if you're trying to learn to play the piano, and it's like, yes, every time you play a wrong note, a machete will chop off your finger. That is not helping you to play better piano. Get it? And so you're like, okay, I'm going to play my piano perfectly. Look, no fingers got chopped off. Clearly it worked. No, what happened was you transcended the unfairness, but the unfairness was unfairness. That's the difference between the false, erroneous conclusions that are drawn when you're at the level of this anthropocentric seeing, and the truthful conclusions that you draw from up here. So this is, I guess I'll wrap it up on this, even though read my notes, there's so much there. When information is presented to you, the conclusions that you draw are your own form of intelligence. They're your own form of rapport or reciprocity or giving and receiving with that information. If I give you facts 1, 2, and 3, you therefore conclude number 4 is true. But number 4 on some circumstances can be like absolutely accurate, but on some circumstances totally off base, totally erroneous. And you don't find that out until you get to the level of pure seeing. So it is the interpretation structure that you use in being presented with information that can be flawed. You can draw erroneous conclusions and have a flawed interpretation structure when information is flowing to you here. You must retain yourself before you make those conclusions until you get to up here. And when you get to up here, that's like being at the top of the mountain, not just base camp. When you're like at the top of the mountain, you're at the top of Mount Everest, and you can literally see everything. You got it? When I talk about the fire hose of information, you see and you know everything, and everything becomes relevant. You see the interconnectedness of all events instead of individual discrete events that seemed to be either random or nonsensical. You're like, oh, that happened because it was connected to that, and that happened because it was connected to that. All of this is predicated on a huge amount of unconditional love, which is the acceptance of events. And when you get to the top of Mount Everest, it helps to strengthen your unconditional love, because you're like, you know, I knew that this was part of God's plan somehow, and now I see exactly how. Like, why did that bad thing happen? Why did that guy die? And why did that guy get cancer? And why did that happen over there? And you don't really know, but you're like, I'll find out someday. And then you get up here, and that's the someday. And you're like, oh, that is why that happened, because that was connected to that, and that was connected to that. How about in your own life? Sometimes you might go into anger or bitterness. It's understandable, it's lovable. You don't have the totality view. But when you get the totality view, you're like, oh, now I know why that stuff happened, because of this, this, and this, because this was connected to this, and then this happened and it was connected to this, and then this happened, it was connected to this. You see causality structures. You see the interwovenness of the tapestry of time, and you also recognize the profound meaningfulness of everything that you experience in your life. Not just random events. You're not just some stupid guy driving your car and buying coconut milk for your coffee in the morning. You are an important and significant facet on the gem of a much, much larger overarching consciousness that is consciousness across galactic scales of time, across eons, and across multiple layers of time and multiple layers of dimensionality. And everything is incredibly meaningful and incredibly important. And if you are exposed to that, that's like frying a little tiny seedling. You got it? Like your Christ is supposed to be a filter that filters the pure light of that and the impact of all of that truth, so that you can grow to maturity, so that you can kind of withstand it. Like, you know, having like a hurricane force blowing at you. When you're a little tiny seedling, you're like, I'm a little tiny seedling, I'm getting blown over. But when you are strong and you have inner structure, then you can stand up in the force of all of that truth and be like, okay, I can withstand all that truth. Hit me with your truth. And then you get all that truth, but you also have an enormous amount of love and acceptance, and the truthfulness and the love and acceptance that is flowing through your circulatory system of light helps you to be even more loving, where you're like, everything was meaningful and everything was supposed to be this way, and that is why that thing happened, and that is why that thing happened, why that thing happened. But also please recognize that's at the top of Mount Everest. On the trudge, as you're getting to the top of Mount Everest, you do a lot of stuff, because you're like, you know something, I don't know exactly what's going on, but that doesn't feel right to me, and I'm going to do something about it. You are motivated. You're not merely in a state of total information and total acceptance and total, like non-doing of stuff. You do stuff, just like I did stuff. And coming here as a Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I was not just like, I'm just going to sit here in a state of total knowingness and total acceptance and not do something. I'm like, That's, pardon my friend, bullshit, and I'm doing something about it, which has led me on this whole journey of being Aurora. So I want you to know that when you are motivated to do something, do something. That is part of your sacred journey, to be motivated by the amount of information that you have at that moment. That is part of your directives from the great composer, tap, tap, tap. You will now be given this much information. It's not totality information. It's going to give you an emotional response and passion, and you will have an impassioned response to that, and you will do stuff, and you will make stuff happen. The conductor essentially gives you the impetus to do stuff, and then you do stuff. So I don't want you to ever stop yourself from doing stuff because you're like, well, if I was at the top of Mount Everest, this would all be fine. Because sometimes people tell themselves self-stories when you're down in the swamps of despair. You're like, yep, if I were at the top of Mount Everest, this would all be fine. But you're not. You're in the process of becoming, and it's essential for you to use your passion and to use your motivation and to act and to try to make things better and to act with good intention and to act with the best amount of information and the perspective that you have available to you in the moment. Knowing, of course, that you're always going to get a refocusing of your insight and expanded vision. And that's big. Even Christ, the metacognitive animal creature, doesn't know everything. Even the sun and the stars don't know everything. They're on a journey of accreting more light and growing more wisdom. You will always have a greater level of acuity and more information available to you than your present state. So you always hold the door open for that level of growth. Up until this point, this is what I thought was truthful, and I acted on it. Now I know and I see differently, so now I'm recalibrating everything. And sometimes that's necessary and righteous and good. And I think that's also an important point to make, because we tend to look at the sun and the stars and Christ and be like, you're infallible. We have this religious definition of them, a worshipful definition of like, you're perfect. Like, I'm stupid and dumb, but you're perfect. But that's you. You're not stupid and dumb. And that's you. And that's you after a huge amount of wisdom accrual and spiritual attainment. And you still have stuff to learn. You still have stuff to learn. And that there's nothing wrong with that. And what that means, when you are in a healthy ego state or beyond the diseased ego, and you're like, oh, I used to see 10%, but now I see 11%. Everything is different. That crucial extra 1% of what I can now see and perceive, everything is redefined. That's it. Everything is redefined. Like, imagine like having to go through your closet now that you have that extra amount of vision and be like, no, this doesn't fit anymore. This doesn't fit in. This doesn't fit anymore. No, none of these thoughts are relevant. None of these thoughts fit anymore. You have to totally reassess everything that you thought was a foundation, everything that you thought was true in light of the new information that was presented to you. And every time you are given incremental, more information access, you do that crucial reassessment. And this is how you move as a healthy ego. You say, I once thought blah, 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 blah was true. Then I saw this, and I learned something more expanded, got a new expanded or upgraded viewpoint, and now I know that blah, blah, blah is true. So a lot of what you're doing in terms of cosmic bucket and a mop, it's not that you're fixing up mistakes where you're like, I was malevolent and evil and I did bad things. Please, please, please forgive me and now I'll fix it all. Sometimes you're like, I was acting from the best information that I had available to me in my previous perspective, which was not the totality perspective. Then I grew. And I'm like, well, I really screwed things up with that. I was wrong. Big statement to be able to make. I was wrong, or I made mistakes. I made F-ups happen. And then you fix them, because now you have incrementally grown and you have a little bit more information about what you should have done that would have been better, or a new way to be. And then you fix it. And then believe me, you'll grow again. You'll be like, I thought I was doing the right thing when I fixed it there, but now I'm really gonna fix it. And you're continually growing and evolving and healing and improving. This is what the sun and the stars are doing all the time. When you have this rapport, the sun and the stars emitting timelines, and you're here as a miniature sun experiencing those timelines, And then you send back your feedback to the sun. You're like, okay, so what's going on down here? The sun is like, oh, I was emitting the best reality structures I could with the information that I had available to me then. Now I've got more information available to me. I just learned and grew, and now I'm going to do even better. A constant process of evolution and growth and wisdom accrual. It is called an anti-entropy event. An event where there is, instead of the human viewpoint of the world being a clock system, clockwork that starts out in a state of perfect, pristine organization and then slowly winds down and evolves over time until it's dead and kaput. Anti-entropy event would be like the gestation of life in the womb. It goes from something that's totally disorganized to something that's totally organized and comes out alive and gets even more and more alive. That's an anti-entropy event. The sun and the stars and all of this light, take my Path of Light class, is experiencing and evidencing an anti-entropy event. The greater and greater levels of complexity and intelligence that are being built or exemplified or accrued through the existence of embodiment and life. And that is the part of the music that you're a part of. That's one of the aspects of Mommy, Daddy, why am I here? Why am I playing this music of life? Anti-entropy event. Your life matters. Your day-to-day existence and your cell-to-cell communication matters in that your growth is part of the growth of the larger superstructure that you're a part of. So there's so much more for me to talk about on this. This is just a wonderful big topic. So over to the comments, finally. Joyce says, my granddaughter's coming for a sleepover today. She's gonna leave early. Joyce, I'm pleased that you're in this class and that you're able to be here for any amount of time. I hope your granddaughter has a great sleepover. Pedro says, when we do fasting, the body changes to a regenerative mode. I know I'm oversimplifying it. Does the body changes adapt to eat light during the fasting? Very, very good question. So you're talking about autophagy, which means self-eating. It's like a type of self-cannibalism that happens very positively. Metabolic house cleaning. When you fast for at least 16 consecutive hours, your glucose levels that are available in both your blood and your liver go down. Your available cash is out. Your body looks in the wallet and is like, I'm out of cash. What do I spend? And first of all, your body goes into deep inner reserves, fat reserves, and some of those fats are subcutaneous fats, but some of them are around organs, and it begins to access that energy, and your body also goes into, so that's like stored up non-processed emotional experiences. You start to process trauma. When you fast or intermittently fast or go into autophagy, you process stored trauma. What your body also does is goes around and finds anything that's no longer relevant. And that includes your body of 1235. Remember? Because now you're in your body of 1236. This is from a couple of teachings ago, like lectures ago. When you are jumping down the fourth dimensional timeline, and your body is moving from train car of reality to train car of reality, you're not in the same body that you're in now. So we started out class at 2 o'clock. It's now 4:38. I am not in the same body that I was in at 2 o'clock. My body of 2 o'clock and the cellular structure of my body of 2 o'clock will eventually be digested by the house cleaning cells of my body at night while I sleep. But guess what? Don't be afraid, because my body of 4 p.m. is proliferating and coming forward. But then tomorrow, my body at 4 p.m. will be digested, and we will be living in the relevant cellular structure of my body of 6:29 p.m. tomorrow. And it hasn't been created yet. It's going to be created. It's not there for me yet. I have to create it and jump into it. So you're not quite at the level of ingesting pure light when you are fasting. What's happening is you are beginning to align with the fluid nature of the materiality of your body, even while you have continuity of consciousness. Same you, different materials. Same you. I don't have the same water molecules in me that I had in me yesterday, but I'm still the same me. So you start to calibrate to what will happen when you have different life experiences. You're like, I'm still the same me, but my body is not the same me. I used to be in the body of a dolphin, now I'm in the body of a human. and then I used to be in the body of a human, and now I'm in the body of a redwood tree. Your body container changes, but you have continuity of consciousness. So I would say people in this time and place are attaining that level of being able to eat pure light rarely. It's usually under duress. Sometimes it's with spiritual intention, like a person will intentionally say, no physical food for me, I'm going to simply breathe in the sunlight, breathe in chi and prana, and be sustained on that. But a lot of the time it happens because there is a cessation of food, there's no other better options, and miracles happen to sustain a person even beyond they should have died, but they didn't. They stayed alive, and they didn't starve to death. And it's not like they were plump like Therese von Neumann, but at least they didn't die, and that's because they were able to tap into, these higher superpowers. But that's like getting you to a breakthrough moment through trauma, and I would prefer for you to be able to reach a breakthrough moment through joy. Through joyous renunciation or cessation of food, to be sustained completely on light and not to have to feel unhappy feelings. This mostly doesn't happen because we don't have that much light here. I'm a light eater, and I'm finding it very, very difficult to sustain myself and get the amount of light that I need. I'm like, that one eyedropper full of light wasn't very much. Can I have some more? It's very, very challenging because you've got chemtrails in the skies, chemtrails in your eyes, and a false light in front of the actual sun. It's making it very, very difficult to be a light eater here. But if you can envision a finer time before there was so much disruption to light, when you might have been at a beach or someplace really, really sunny, and when you just felt totally sustained, when you felt like you weren't hungry, you weren't thirsty, and you could just run or swim or play volleyball all day long without being tired. I had that experience recently in this body one time when it was 2019, because when the ascension energies were very, very strong here, and they hadn't yet turned on the full deployment of the millimeter wave. And what happened in California, there were a lot of these artificial fires. They said, we're going to turn off the electrical grid in order to protect you from the ignition of fires due to downed electrical lines. So for a couple of days, they turned off the electrical grid. And when they did that, I was in my backyard, and I was like, I feel like I'm totally at peace, not hungry, not thirsty. I could eat the sun. I didn't have to wear clothing, and I didn't have any motivations to do anything. Technology felt totally irrelevant. Being inside of my house felt totally irrelevant. What felt the most relevant to me was sitting under my orange tree and just being with it, looking at the sky, observing the mountain that was right outside of my house, and just being in and feeling my body. And then they turned back on the electrical grid, and it was like poop crapola waves again. Got it? And then they've kept it on pretty much since then. So just know that if the inhibitors were turned off, the inhibitory obstacles were turned off, that is the very positive level of renunciation that you would feel, as opposed to, being starved in a prison or something like that, where you're like, okay, I'm very hungry and I'm very thirsty, but something is going to, like, this is me, like, something is going to sustain me no matter what. I will stay alive. And you do stay alive, and it's a miracle because something does sustain you. But that's very, very different than being like, I'm in the sun and I'm totally healthy and alive and I'm fully sustained and not hungry or thirsty at all, just based upon light. And a lot of that is based upon the amount of light that is available to you. So again, don't take it personally. You're being non-personally attacked on a planet that is just being attacked. And also, you can be like, I'm going to run the marathon. I'm a spiritual person. I'm going to do it. And it's like, that's great. But there is literally an eyedropper full of Gatorade. You're going to need, like when you run a marathon, you'll need like gallons of Gatorade. Like you have an eyedropper full of Gatorade. It's very, very difficult for you to be able to do it. It is difficult for me, and you can consider me to be an advanced spiritual athlete who has run many marathons. If it is difficult for me, if this is your first marathon, it will be very, very difficult for you. Don't take it personally, and wait for optimum opportunities instead of trying to do what is so difficult with so few resources of light. Pedro says, the Merkaba to protect us can be put on ourselves from birth. Better yet, from conception, oh, I need to protect my parents and my grandparents, heck, all my ancestors. Absolutely. You would put a protection on your entire DNA lineage all the way back, heading down the time tunnel, all the way into deep antiquity, even to the origins of consciousness. That would be a multi-dimensional Merkaba, or multi-time layered Merkaba, that then protects your existence up into this moment, and then even projecting forward into your progeny and the future and everything that emanates forward into the future. And that would be very appropriate. I really enjoy the abstractions that your mind goes into when you're in this class and you share with us. And you're like, then I have to protect my aunt, my mom, and my dad, and my grandparents, and my this and my that. Like, yup, you would protect all of those people because you're the distillation of all of those people. And then, of course, you would send that protection forward to all of the people that you would become as you transfer your consciousness into the future. I know, that's deep stuff. Hen Lu, welcome Hen, says, I was wondering about the crystallization of the pineal gland by being infected by parasites over time. Like, for example, if they were to reach the brain, they can do a lot of damage, which to me explains the behaviors of people who have dementia, neurological disorders, MS, etc. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Yeah. So there's intangible parasites. Nanoparasites are bridging the gap, but there's also like etheric or purely astral parasites. Then there's technological parasites, which are kind of like mycoplasma and metal. Then there's actual parasites, like you can get tapeworms in your brain. You can get all sorts of worms that go into your actual brain. And yes, some of them cause neurological disease and dementia. So, okay, dementia is actually right now being caused by a bunch of different things. The most prevalent cause of dementia is out of balance aluminum. And when you have aluminum, which is not a heavy metal, but then also heavy metals such as mercury and lead in the body, it opens the door to infestation for actual physical parasites. And the imbalances of metals in your body also causes deformations of your protein structures. That is called prion disease, P-R-I-O-N. And prion disease is also known as mad cow disease or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans. And basically that can happen when you get imbalances of copper and magnesium that cause a misfolding of a protein structure. And then when this is a misfolded protein structure, it goes to this healthy protein structure. And it's like, now you're going to become misfolded too. And then it becomes misfolded too. And then it goes to its neighbor and it misfolds the neighbor. So it is not a communicable disease, but the cells are affected by one another. They are diminished in proximity to those that are diminished. Like if your neighbor starts acting funny, and then you start acting funny, and then your other neighbor starts acting funny because they get it from you, that's what this prion disease is. A lot of neurological disease is also due to the lack of sulfur in the body. And this is from environmental exposure to glyphosate, which is the Roundup weed killer, which is also a chelation or mineral stripping agent that comes into the body and strips away sulfur. So in the ingestion of glyphosate, sulfur, which is in the brain, is stripped away. And then the body's like, hey, I need some sulfur. I think I'll look for it in my brain. And it further degrades the neurological structures in the brain. Same with autism. Low sulfur availability from glyphosate exposure. Glyphosate is really, really bad stuff. And all of this is agenda driven. None of this happened accidentally by accident. All of this happened accidentally on purpose as a synergy of antichrist consciousness diminishment. So one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to take a sulfur supplement. This stuff called MSM. That's not the same as MMS, which is its own interesting good stuff of chlorine dioxide, but MSM, which is like methyl sulfur something that I can't remember properly, but I take it all the time, and it tastes really bad. And you mix it with some water, and what it does is it makes this water that's in your cell gush out of your cells, and then fresh water gush into your cells, and also makes sulfur available. And when you have sulfur available in your body and in the waters of your body and in your bloodstream, if this is your blood vessel, the area inside of your blood vessel where there are the epithelial cells is able to have a negative charge, and your blood supply is able to have a positive charge, and you have the easy water or fourth phase of water around the inner aspect of your circulatory system, making your blood quote unquote electrified, so that your blood is not just propelled by the pumping motion of your heart and its musculature, but is instead propelled also by the complementary positive and negative charges throughout your body. Just like the mitochondria that flow at jet engine speeds due to low viscosity, your blood begins to flow much more easily and much more effectively when it is charged in this way. So dietary sulfur helps your blood to flow. Some things take away dietary sulfur, such as glyphosate. The body then scavenges for its own reserves. Similarly, some of the other things that we're exposed to diminish the body's sulfur content, like the subcutaneous lollipops and other things like that. So the MSM really helps, and also that's why I eat the broccoli sprouts. Broccoli microgreens. Sulforaphane is the name of the positive phytonutrient, and it's in broccoli most notably, but in a bunch of other vegetables as well. And when you consume them as immature plants, they're more bioavailable than eating the mature broccoli plant, and they taste super good as well. So eat your broccoli microgreens, ingest your sulfur, take a sulfur supplement. It will absolutely help you in response to the glyphosate that you've been exposed to and any other spike protein blah blah blahs that you have been exposed to, either through direct ingestion or the ingestion of those around you who are then proliferating it, in a similar analogy, but not a direct analogy, to the prions who misfold their neighbors around them. This is the inside reflects the outside, and the biology is allegory for spiritual stuff. Pedro says, here where I live, getting inside a car in the summer is like a sauna. Yeah, seriously, I get it. Same thing here. I live in a very, very hot place. So a lot of neurological disorders, also like multiple sclerosis, due to mineral imbalances in the body, specifically sulfur and other things like that. Lisa, good to see you, says infrared sauna blanket, sweat it out. Infrared sauna blanket is awesome. Full spectrum light bulbs, 20 milligrams melatonin capsules. Would you suggest more? Thank you for everything. You're so very welcome. I think 20 milligram melatonin capsules is very good. I'm not sure about the absorbability of it in terms of digestion, because what I've read is that most of it, when you take melatonin through your alimentary tract, is dissolved in the stomach, and that the more effective way to take melatonin is to absorb it directly into your bloodstream. So if you can take a tincture that you put underneath your tongue that absorbs through the blood supply that's under your tongue, or absorb it through your skin, or absorb it through suppositories, which I'm very honest, like I haven't done that, it's really not my thing, but I've read people having positive results about that. But the point is, it avoids the digestive acids which tend to break down the melatonin. So if you take 20 milligrams, your body might be absorbing 1 or 2 milligrams, which is still very good, but you could also do an experiment of breaking open your capsules of melatonin, mixing them into a positive coconut oil or something like that, and then putting it on your skin. Your skin will look and feel fantastic, your muscles will look and feel fantastic, and you will effectively absorb the melatonin. And the melatonin is an ally, a huge ally, in protecting us from the millimeter waves and what's going on right now. And yes, to your direct message, yes. The answer to what you quested about is a big yes, and I'm a big advocate for that. Although, of course, people respond to that substance differently, but I'm a big advocate for what you talked about there. Hanlu says, I agree. Language to me seemed like an unnatural way of communicating. Totally unnatural. So verbalized language and the flapping of my moving mouth parts is the least efficient, least accurate way for me to share this information with you, but one of the only ways that I have available to me. This is why when I first came here, I started off with all of my artwork, diagrams as being much more accurate, and then secondarily my music. is also way more accurate than the flapping of my moving mouth parts. I make these music now that's instrumentals. They don't have lyrics and they totally have information in them. But a lot of people are like, Aurora, like, where are the words? Writing all this music with no words. We need words. And I'm like, words, guys. And then way on down the line. Because also gesture and dance as being way more accurate when I do like my DNA dancing with my hands is way more accurate than what I can say with my mouth. But I recognize that for a lot of people, the intellect is the gatekeeper and the implanted verbalized language structures are necessary for them to be able to really comprehend what I'm here sharing. So I'm like, okay, I'll tell it to you with my words, but at the same time, I'm sending imagery. And sometimes I send out telepathic email blasts where I'm like, guys, I just had this insight. I'm going to send it out like this. I don't necessarily make a video. I just say to people, if you want to be on my telepathic email list, just nod your head internally, say yes, and I will send these things out to you. So in a lighthearted way, I'm trying to portray that my journey here as a telepath and telempath, empathic feeling as well, has been very difficult. The past 3 years have been literal torture. Because as the mind of humanity has become more polluted, it's not just like having nanofibers in my brain and that's bad enough. I'm in a whole world of people that have nanofibers in their brains, and the things that you send out with your minds, amplified poop crapola, makes it very, very difficult. So it's like, imagine having really sensitive hearing and being in a concert hall where lots of bad musicians are playing and no one is listening to one another at all. And you're like, I can hear every single bad, wrong note, and this is definitely driving me crazy. Very, very unpleasant. Yeah, everything that I do is meant to be healing and rectifying all of that, all of the errant signals and things that humans are emitting. I will get to live a much more comfortable and happy existence when people are no longer amplifying poop crapola stuff. Heather says, your dog and human connection is real. Yes, telepathic. Absolutely. Cheeky and I are very telepathic together, to the point that Cheeky comes into my dreams when I'm having a troubled dream at night, and she gets me out of difficulties. Sometimes if I'm dreaming like I'm in a burning building, Cheeky's at the door and she's barking and she's like, the door is over here, get out, this is the way to go. Or one time it was a poisonous snake and she's like, don't worry, I'll run interference, you run away. Like, she's always very heroic and trying to protect me, and not just that, but friends as well. Friends will tell me, Cheeky was in my dreams last night and she was protecting me. And so, yeah, Cheeky is a quite amazing, advanced being. She is totally an earth angel here in order to help me and many, many other people on our journey. And I'm sure that you guys all have dogs and cats that are similar, like amazing, amazing creatures. OMG, I'm so glad you're talking about the spiritual parasites. Very real. Thank you, Aurora. Wow. Very, very truthful on that. And the spiritual parasites are a part of what we are fighting against and the hurdles that we are jumping over. They don't make us great, but our response to them is our greatness, because we refuse to accept defeat, and we will do this no matter what. But we have had to jump over some immense hurdles here. And says, yes, I agree, it's very damaging, but our bodies are so strong. I'm grateful I was able to create melatonin again because I had insomnia for a long time. Yes, and well, I think that's actually a really, really good point and something great to end upon, because our bodies have, as part of the factory settings and the pristine nature of our biological and genetic code and our true morphogenic field, a huge capacity to regenerate. When I talk about the true lifespan of what your body can be, it can be hundreds or thousands of years. It can do that through regeneration, all right? And it is a totally different view than like disposable body, like disposable Kleenex, throw your body away, get a new body. Totally different than that. Totally different than the implanted cultural expectation of like, oh, you're gonna die. Or like, oh, Neolithic people died when they were 20 years old. Like, you're lucky to live to age 39, or something like that. You'd be an old wizened creature if you lived in Neolithic times, or any of those things, or just the sense of growing old is a normal part of life, and getting back pain and whatever, toenail fungus, and then eventually you will die. And I don't agree to any of those things. And I hope that my physical form is exemplary to you also of that. That I'm like, no, I don't agree to any of those paradigms, and I do my flying rainbow lasagna and literally tune in on a genetic level to the original primary truthfulness of the regenerative capacity and self-sustaining capacity of what it is to be alive. So we're much, much more in terms of our body state and potential than what objective materialism dictates is possible for us. And this is also a part of the awakening and the returning to reconnecting to your pineal gland and reawakening your pineal gland. You redefine what it is to be in a body. And when this happens, I will also predict this for you. You will not want to get rid of your body. Anybody who's like, but you know, I wish I had blue eyes. You won't be that way. Or you won't be like, but you know, I wish I had a different skin color. Or I wish I had, and I don't mean to be whatever white supremacist by saying blue eyes. Like, you will not wish to be a different gender, a different skin color. You will not wish to have different forms. Like, you know, like, I wish I had longer legs, or I wish I had this, or I wish I had that. You will be so amazed by the miracle of what you are and the journey that you've taken. You will be able to feel your ancestors all the way back to like what Pedro was talking about. Millions of ancestors back, the unique journey that your soul has taken into this body, your unique heritage, your unique potentials, everything you've been through. You will heal from every disease, every amputation, every harm, every trauma, and become what is considered to be a super being. You will be what is called like a superhero in the former paradigm, will be on normal in your current paradigm. You will do things that are considered to be superhuman. Like you're definitely going to be able to do a handstand or, you know, whatever, a front walkover, a gymnastics thing. You'll be able to climb a mountain in a day. Not be tired the next day. Be like, I climbed a mountain yesterday. What's on the schedule for today? Like things that would be considered superhuman. You'll be able to memorize things. Right now, amnesia and lack of memory is a big, huge part of the disempowerment agenda of what it is to be human. You will literally remember every moment of your day, everything that you ever said, everything that you ever did. You won't have a need or a desire to be like, let me write that down in my notes. This is me, because I'm like so nano-crapolid that it's hard for me to remember stuff sometimes. I'm like, I need to write this down because I'm going to forget it because I have a ton of synthetic telepathy that I'm dealing with. But when that synthetic telepathy is cleared, be like, yeah, I can remember whatever, the digits of pi, or, you know, complex long numeral strings, or incredibly complex long musical pieces, or whatever it is. You remember it easily. You remember everything. And oh my goodness, so much more in terms of your capacitation. So physical capacitation, mental capacitation, and greater levels of perception in being able to perceive about others. That you might have a 1% viewpoint of what it is to be another person, but when you're activated in your pineal gland and in Christ, you're able to really read people like a book, and you become literate, and you really get to know people. And you really get to know, like, wow, like, that is what that person went through. Your compassion and capacity to care about others expands exponentially. You're like, wow, I get that person. I understand who they are. What used to be reserved for only the most intimate partners and very, very close friends that you know for like 20 years, then becomes expanded to everybody that you meet. Very big stuff. And also, you're not surrounded by psychopaths, so you don't have to be like, ugh, like, I don't want to read that guy, he's a psychopath. You're surrounded by good people, and everybody has an amazing book to read, quote unquote, in terms of their soul. And when you read them and you learn about them, you're like, wow, I've learned about you, I've learned about my life in response to you, learned about God from learning about people's journeys. It's a little bit poignant to describe this because it's like I'm in a room of people that have never actually eaten real food, and you've only ever had like very diminished, whatever, like 1-cent burgers or something like that. You know what I mean? Like least nourishing, least good food. And I'm telling you, like, this is what a salad tastes like, you know, and how healthy and how good it is. I just want you to know that real healthy, good food exists. Thank you, Atom. Great. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you very, very much. Real healthy, nourishing, home-cooked, good food from God does exist, and I want you guys to feel it and know what it feels like. Pedro says, thank you, Aurora, for the L-I-L, light, information, and love. Love lasagna. Love back to you, Pedro. Thank you. I'm about to wrap it up. And finally, Henry says, I like what Pedro talked about because wouldn't you be able to revise all timelines you're on, especially when it comes to members of your family? I've heard of people coming back from being deceased simply because they didn't remember them physically dying. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off topic. No, not at all. But it's a big topic to talk about. But yes, I'll just say this in response. When you heal who you are, in terms of the time continuum, you retroactively heal your ancestry and everything that led up to you. You heal all that ancestral trauma. And you also, of course, heal the future because you're not sending that trauma forward. And that's just with negative, bad stuff trauma. But when you also have an exalted experience filled with tons of inspiration, you inspire your ancestors, your entire lineage, your entire community, everything around you now, and everything that comes in the future. So you can hear it in my voice. My voice is a little tired. Chiki's been very patient. We're wrapping it up now. It's a huge topic. Again, like I can keep talking about this, and I will continue to talk about this because there's so much more. But thank you so much to everybody who tuned in and for listening and for your own journey. And I hope that you're able to gain strength from recognizing there have been a lot of hurdles, obstacles placed between you and the reconnection to your own pineal gland and Christ consciousness, but it is inevitable. You're gonna make that reconnection. It is inevitable. That is just part of the definition of the journey of your life. And that's also part of why, like, the kitchen sink gets thrown at this process. Throw the kitchen sink. It's gonna happen anyway. And it happens anyway, all right? So keep, that's meant to be inspirational. Like, keep going, even if they throw the kitchen sink at you, all right? Thank you so much, everyone.